learn with me what the hell is going on. Someone needs to get this message to the defense. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Have to use brain power. Let me help out Dr. Russell here.
Many people suffer from what's called an acute grief reaction.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
Buchanan was so defensive and unable to throw Proctor under the bus because he loved him.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Then we add what we know about Michael Proctor. This guy is just the world's biggest. On every level that a person could be, between incompetence and stupidity, Michael Proctor wins the award for a combination of both. They killed him. Who are all the powers that be? Look at the smile on his face. That's what happened.
It. That's
what happened. So she doesn't actually want them to get here quickly, and that's the reason why she doesn't say there's an officer down. Meet the Bar Association of Norfolk County's Person of the Year.
I routinely do when I work with attorneys, okay? I prepare this on my own.
Oh my God.
See? You see it? It is undeniable.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Holy you guys. Build some way to feed her ego. So if you have absolutely nothing to do with the death of John O'Keefe, why start crying on the stand? Hank Brennan deserves an award for being the most unlikable human being that the world has ever seen. Consciousness of guilt. I would really like somebody to do the right thing in this case.
Sergeant Barrows, is this the condition of the right rear taillight?
Absolutely not.
At no point do you wake up or go outside and say to somebody, why are you here? What if there was a gunman? Because you don't know. How do I know? There's 40 cops in front of my very small front yard. That's the bedroom window. Here's Sonny. Hey, hi, everybody. Here's my phone. Hello. Sonny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I wasn't going to record a video today, but then I stumbled upon this. Peter met with Adam Lally for lunch. During this lunch, Adam Lally told Peter that he knows the poor person. Oh my God. This is not good.
Now you're starting to see the blurs easier.
You see those two blurs?
Are moving around.
She absolutely knows it would not be Karen Reed's defense team that she'd have to worry about. It would be the defense who she lied to.
Is the defendant not guilty or guilty?
A juror explaining why she voted to acquit Karen Reed of that second-degree murder charge for allegedly ramming her SUV into John O'Keefe during a blizzard in 2022.
A collision did not occur. I can't assess the motive to this sloppy police investigation.
And the toughest moment for her? Hearing the derogatory text messages about Reed sent by lead homicide investigator Michael Proctor just hours after he got the case.
Whatever timestamp was on that deleted wall file is the time that she did that search. And she deleted it. Let's make sure and pin it on this girl who I hope kills herself. That's a class act. You are a class act, Michael Proctor. Definitely someone should give you a gun and a badge. 100% sure that Karen did not do this.
Number one is I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters who have supported me and my team financially and, more importantly, emotionally for almost 4 years. And the second thing I want to say is no one has fought harder for justice for John O'Keefe than I have.
How dare they?
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Hello, everybody. You can probably hear me. Tell me you can hear me. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Benigno. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a sixth-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor, and I am here breaking down the Justice for John O'Keefe case. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's so exciting. It's Wednesday. Yay. So I am so glad you can hear me. I don't trust StreamYard at all, but I'm kind of getting the lay of the land. I'm kind of figuring it out. I've actually got two computers going simultaneously, just in case this one doesn't work. Now we have like a backup operation. So welcome. So nice to see you guys. I see some of my regulars now, people whose names I'm starting to recognize. Hi guys. So yeah, quite the week. And I have been doing a lot of investigating, into always, the usual stuff. But the thing is, for a long time, I've had my eye on the investigators, right? So looking at the Norfolk County's homicide division, their sort of crew, right? Including Proctor and Buchanan, and Brian Tully's the one that I am kind of the most concerned or interested in. But this week, we got a rare opportunity to see Adam Lally in the witness chair. How awesome was that? Oh my God. So, and it was very, very strange. So I'm looking, I know they're in the same courthouse as in the Dedham courthouse, but I'm looking at the courtroom and I'm going, is that the same courthouse? Is this the same room that Adam Lally stood and sat in front of that witness seat? I couldn't believe it. I almost died. I was, this can't even be happening. So it was quite the poetic justice moment seeing Adam Lally on the witness stand and talking about something that I have had my eye on for a very long time. And because I'm not an attorney and, I'm a true crime fan, like probably most of us, but I'm not an attorney, so I have these moments of doubt, right? But for a long time, I've had a working theory about the district attorney's office, Michael Morrissey's office, and everybody in that office. And I suspect, and we're going to take a very close look at this tonight, that my theory is correct, right? So we're going to look very, very closely at a bunch of compilations, some videos I put together so that we can kind of get to the bottom of what the hell is going on with this group, right? Because, if you've seen any of the, I don't know what that was, hearing, right? I don't even know what to call this display where Adam Lally was dragged into this, into the hot seat. I don't even know what to call this hearing, but we're going to take a much closer look at it. So we'll go through it all together. But for a long time, we're hearing people make the insinuation, whether it was jurors from the Karen Reed trial, whether it was, Turtle Boy and his attorneys, whether it's any group at all. And a lot of the law tubers, a lot of whom are my favorites, of course. However, a lot of folks don't want to call the incompetence that we see. A lot of folks are hesitant to say that it's corruption, right? A lot of people don't want to say that we're looking at outright corruption. They want to say incompetence. They want to say, apathy. Like I've heard people say that Adam Lally just doesn't care. And that when he's in this witness stand in this chair a few days ago, he's emanating this air of well, who cares? I'm this lazy guy who doesn't really give a crap about my job. But the thing about Adam Lally, because remember, I am knee deep, you guys, I am digging back through the archives at all of the old testimony from the first trial. And I'm talking about the crap nobody cares about, just because it seems like even when I'm not looking and I'm just listening, even in the background, I'm catching things. And you have to listen carefully because the shit that you catch is really specific. So I don't know if you saw, I think one of the more recent videos I put out where we catch all of the people in the house at 34 Fairview, the McAlberts, telling a different story about these photos that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert were allegedly looking at. Now, this is a great example because how many times have all of us heard a reference to those guys looking at photos of something to do with the Marines and the sun or whatever? But when you listen closely, it turns out, wait a minute, they're not even all telling the same story. They're all telling like 6 different stories about what the hell happened that night. You're kidding me. So because of that, you really have to go back and like listen carefully to pull all this together. And because I'm doing all this like lie detection stuff, I am listening very, very carefully, but it takes time, you guys. Like this stuff takes hours of your life. It's like really exhaustive work. It really, really is. So as I'm going back through all of these little details, you know who I'm listening to a lot of? Adam Lally. A lot more than I would like. And it's funny because as much as I dislike Hank Brennan, Adam Lally really gets under your skin after a while. Like he really gets under your skin. And you know why? Because he is a 100% grade A scumbag who flies under the radar with this like veneer, right? This exterior of like, I'm like this little pathetic, apathetic loser who doesn't really know where he is. And he's so disorganized and he's kind of messy. But as it turns out, that's all part of the show. Like that's all intentional to get you to not look at him, to get you to not see who this guy really is. And when you're going back through all this testimony, let me tell you, it becomes impossible to miss what a scumbag this guy is. And I really mean he is a scumbag. Now, I get, you've probably all heard, and from different sources, people referring recently to how much money Hank Brennan made from the Commonwealth on the trial, right? And I don't have the number in front of me at this very second. We'll take a look later. I think it's somewhere on like 560,000 was like the total, like the grand total was somewhere like around $550,000, right? Which is ridiculous because remember in the very beginning, there was supposed to be like $150,000 cap or some nonsense that couldn't have possibly been true, but whatever. So we've all been hearing rumblings about that, right? And typically what we've been told, and I don't even know if this was from some publicist for the Norfolk County DA's office, but the idea was that the reason for this was because nobody in the DA's office wanted to try the case again. Nobody was going to do it. Well, that would be true, except for it's not true. Absolutely false. Because when you go back and you listen very carefully to Paul O'Keefe's interview with Christina Rex, and there have been other interviews as well that are specific to the family right after the mistrial, where Adam Lally has very clearly from his own mouth said to the family, I would try the case tomorrow. Let's go. I'm ready to try it right now. Let's go. So I have absolutely no doubt. I would go as far as to tell you that I am 100% sure that Adam Lally was taken off of this case, that the Norfolk DA's office, Michael Morrissey, didn't think he was going to win with Adam Lally. So he brought in Hank Brennan because he figured Hank Brennan was going to be a shark. He was going to do it differently. You know, he's a no nonsense guy. He's a defense attorney. He's going to get right out in front of everything. So he's going to get out in front of everybody, right? And he's going to be on the defense of the defense. And of course, that backfired terribly because as it turned out, Adam Lally's laissez-faire style of just throwing shit at the wall and like throw it all out there for everybody to see and hopefully they won't catch it was a better plan in the end. Because, and it makes sense, right? Like think about it psychologically. From a psychological perspective, you've got this DA throwing just flagrant garbage at you, right? Like Adam Lally just throwing absolute garbage. Like all these people at 34 Fairview telling you 12 different stories, everybody having a different story, allegedly saying the same thing, but all saying something different. He knows it. Adam Lally knows this case better than anybody. He probably knows this case better than Alan Jackson. That's the truth. Because this guy sat down with how many people for the DA the first time? How many people testified just for the prosecution in this first trial? So Adam Lally knew everything about this night, knew soup to nuts where everybody was, who they said they were with, and he knew that there were all these discrepancies between all these different statements. And what did he do? He tried to hide it. And how did he try to hide it? He tries to hide it by like conveniently not drawing your attention to certain words or statements at certain times. Like he'll bury certain things in certain places and then bring it out later so it doesn't seem as big of a deal. And we're going to go through a lot of that tonight because I put all this video together for you to know exactly what I am talking about. So yeah, you're going to see exactly what I see. Because it's insane, you guys. Like, I can't take it anymore. This guy, Adam Lally, is such a scumbag, and he gets away with it. He's getting away with it. It's driving me nuts. And he gets away with it by pulling this, like, I'm an idiot card. He really does. He gets away with it by pulling the I'm an idiot card. And it's tough. It's tough for me to take. But even despite that, guess what? The eyes of the world are now on this group. And the first sort of chips to fall, right, were the homicide division of the DA's office. So those guys went down first, and they went down, right? The whole unit is disbanded. So first Proctor was fired, then Tully was rehomed, Buchanan, DeChico, the whole group, they've all been rehomed. They've been completely disbanded, sent, what's his name, Kakowski. They've all been sent to different places. None of them are together anymore. Now, we know that Tully is still working on the Turtle Boy case, certainly, but they're not in the same office. They're not all sitting in Canton. Can we talk about that for a second? Can I just draw this to your attention, because this is just wild to me. These guys are in Canton. This district attorney's office is in Canton, Massachusetts, where Lally is, where Proctor is. They were all in the same hall on different sides of the hall, according to Adam Lally. Okay? Keep that in mind when we're going through all this garbage today. It is insane. It's really insane. It's insane. It's insane. It makes me sick. It's disgusting. So, but it's really important because we're talking about discovery material. And one of the major problems that these now, so the cops went down, and now we're starting to turn our attention to the attorneys. And I saw somebody say it in the chat. Let's hope that Judge Kearney ends up being the last to fall. That would be so poetic, right? Because yeah, make no mistake about it. She is as guilty as they get. Yeah, so guilty. So, oh my God. All right. So a lot to do. And it's interesting because this, you guys, this stuff has all been going on right in front of our face for a really long time. Right in front of our face for a really long time. And it's hard to see, again, because you got a guy like Adam Lally putting 60 witnesses in front of us, and he's so boring. He drones on and on. It literally, like, I have ADHD, right? So for me, I'm listening to this guy, and it's like, I gotta like keep my eyes, like I gotta keep my head, like I gotta be like this to listen, because naturally he loses your attention because he's monotone, he's boring, he's quiet. And you know what? It's all intentional. This whole thing is intentional. It's disgusting. It really, really is. So we're going to take a look at this question. And I'm going to start our video presentation for the evening. I'm going to start with the question of whether or not Adam Lally, who has been with this office for 20 years, I'm going to start with whether or not he is apathetic. Okay. So that is the question we're starting. Is this just apathy? Is he just like, I don't really care. This is just some stupid job. Right. That's sort of the yes. And somebody said it. I see somebody said it. I told you, and Samuel, you caught it. I went 2 days. 2 days. That's how I knew it. You know what happens? I get bored. I get bored and I'm staring at my hands. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I gave in after 2 days. That was actually quite a long time. For me, 2 days. 2 days, and I sat with like nail hardeners on and all this stuff, treatments to try to treat my finger. It's funny. Anyway. All right. So I am going to get started on this video, and hopefully we'll get to all of your comments as we are going through this as well. And I'm in the process of getting moderators. I know I need them really badly. So they're coming. I promise you they're coming. I promise they are. Okay. So, all right. So I'm adding this. Agreed. 100%, Patty. All right. So
today, the lead prosecutor in the first Karen Read trial took the stand in a different murder case with ties to former state police investigator Michael Proctor.
ADA Adam Lally was questioned about how he handled evidence that was supposed to be shared with the Miles King defense team.
ADA Lally spent almost 2 hours being grilled on the stand here in court today. He was being asked why he didn't press Michael Proctor harder on turning over information, turning over evidence over to the defense team in the Miles King case. Norfolk County Assistant District Attorney Adam Lally in the hot seat Monday.
I didn't get all 6 search warrants from Trooper Proctor.
You did not?
I did not.
Explaining his role in the investigation of Miles King, the man accused of the 2021 murder of Marquis Simmons in Milton. Lally was grilled by King's defense attorney Rosemary Scapiccio, who questioned why it was taking so long to share discovery evidence with the defense as required by law.
All right. So we're going to take a pause here. Couple of really important details. Number one, it is not a coincidence, you guys, that these are search warrants. Keep this in mind, okay? So the search warrants is a important detail in this. And you'll hear I took these news clips just to kind of start with. We're actually going to go right now into more of the actual trial just because it's more of an overview. It's a little bit less, doesn't drown on and on and on, or drone on and on and on. So, but this is really important. Do not gloss over the fact that we are talking about search warrants, because my suspicion here is that these folks have been, how do I want to say this, cutting corners on search warrants for a very long time. And we're going to go through and I will absolutely explain this in more detail. But you hear that in the news report, they're talking about discovery material. Specifically, they're talking about Michael Proctor, because Michael Proctor is the hot story, right? He's the salacious guy that everybody, that as far as like a news announcer goes, of course, Michael Proctor is going to be is going to be an important whatever in the story. But do not lose sight. Let me see. I'm turning does that help? Does my volume up now? Hopefully that's louder. It's so difficult because I've got like 10 different screens on. Oh wait, I'll do this. Hold on. There we go. That should be better. You should be able to hear me now. I also have a new microphone coming because I have like microphone issues. So yes, exactly. Proctor is the scapegoat. 100%. He is 100% the scapegoat. So, but that's the thing, right? They're having a hard time because, and we're going to take a look at this too, we've now got this Miles King case. Of course, we've got the Karen Reed case, but they also have a very similar problem in the Brian Walsh case. So that's not a case that I followed really closely, but I'll tell you what I did do. I went and really carefully listened to Buchanan and Fanning in their testimonies during that case, which I pulled some tape from today too. And yeah, it's pretty interesting because guess what? They're having problems with search warrants there also. So we're not just talking about discovery, although we are also talking about discovery because, of course, how many times did the defense in this case, in the Karen Reed trial, across both trials, ask for discovery stuff that they didn't get, right? Okay. So we're going to keep going, and let's see what you guys think.
Process did you go through to issue the 2022 search warrants after indictment?
Through this court.
I'm sorry?
Through this court.
So you went to Superior Court and asked for these search warrants, is that right?
Myself personally, no.
Well, did you notify defense counsel that you were asking for search warrants in a case where a client had already been indicted?
No.
Do you know whether or not there's an obligation on behalf of the district attorney's office to notify defense counsel post-indictment if you're moving to request additional search warrants?
They weren't search warrants that were pertaining to the defendants. They were.
Do you know whether or not there is an obligation on behalf of the district attorney's office, you specifically, to notify defense counsel if you're seeking search warrants after indictment?
Objection. If this is a legal, yeah.
Sustained.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know the camera angle is like horrific. I have no idea why this was the way that they filmed it. I guess it wasn't. There was also some camera somewhere that took a much better shot of Adam Lally, but that wasn't the one that I was able to find for this. I have no idea why.
So in any event, we're talking about search warrants in January of 2024. You don't say anything about the search warrants that are still outstanding, those 6. And you tell the court there's only a few things that are outstanding then. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then we come back. You suggest.
So he's saying yes to this, right? Like, and I don't know if you remember going through. I came back. It's a completely different judge. Absolutely. I don't know who the judge is in this. I don't remember their name. I'd have to go back and look. But it's a completely different judge, which you'll see because it's a fair person. You quickly ascertain this is a person who's fair, who wants to hear, what Adam Lally has to say, but is reasonable when there is some kind of an objection. And that's the idea here, right? Like this woman, Rosemary Scapiccio, she's great. She's a boss for sure. And right, Dooley is the judge. Thank you. And this is the thing, right? Like Adam Lally's not even on this case anymore, right? He hands this over to somebody else. But the bottom line is, how many times are they dragging, him into court to get the discovery, to get the search warrants, to get more discovery? And he just keeps saying, yeah, judge, I need more time. Now, does that sound familiar? Because how many times did the defense in the Karen Reed case have to do that? How many times did you hear from Lally? Oh, yeah, we sent an email. Oh, we requested from the Massachusetts State Police and we didn't get it, or we got a link that didn't work, or whatever, right? Always some garbage excuse. Remember that we're talking about people who are on the same hall. Okay. This isn't even like another building somewhere down the street. We're talking about the same building, like Michael Proctor, who's the person who signed the search warrants in this case, was down the hall at this time.
We suggest March and we come back in March. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Then in March, do you tell the court, Your Honor, as far as discovery goes, we're in fairly good position. In regard to that, I believe that was turned over just prior at the last date, so there may be a couple of other additional items of discovery that I need to get and turn over. But otherwise, I think we're in a fairly good position. Did you say that to the court, sir?
I don't.
Finish, Your Honor.
Yes.
these transcripts in the FTR, what's on the FTR, what was said by whom, when, is all a matter of public record, and we can look at the FTR and get it. So specific quotes and what was said, what was represented, that's part of the record, and we can see
But I
that.
just have to set it up so I can ask the question that I want to ask, Judge.
Great.
Thank you. So after having made that representation to the court, did you do anything to get the 6 search warrants?
No.
What were the outstanding matters as far as you understood back in March of 2024?
I don't recall exactly what we were talking about on a court date in March of 2024.
So here's the thing that you want to keep in mind, right? Oh, this is Judge Peter Krupp. Who is the judge? Dooley, that is somebody, is that the judge for Aidan? Is Dooley the judge for Aidan or for Walsh? That's a super familiar name. Keep in mind as we're going through this, okay, that we're talking about search warrants. So why do you think that he might have an interest or an investment in not turning over search warrants specifically? Because make no mistake, these are not an accident. It's not an accident that the things he's not turning over are search warrants, just like it wasn't an accident that the things that he wasn't turning over in the Karen Reed case were ring videos or, other videos.
Do you have any notes that would refresh your memory as to what was outstanding at that point?
I might.
And would they be in your file?
If they were anywhere, that's where they would be, yes.
Okay.
This guy.
Now, other than the discovery motion that we filed, did we also file a pretrial conference report in this case?
That I don't recall.
Okay, but you understand normally we file a pretrial conference report where you agree to give me what I'm asking for, and we agree to file motions on stuff we can't agree on. Is that typically how it goes?
Yes.
Okay. And you don't remember signing a pretrial conference report? Not that you didn't, you just don't recall.
I don't recall every pretrial conference report I've signed.
Okay. And then we talked about the meeting with the state police. Did you have any meetings with the Milton police regarding outstanding discovery?
In-person meetings? No.
Did you send the Milton police the same type of discovery request that you would have sent to the state police?
Yes.
And did you follow up with the Milton police the same way that you say you followed up with the state police?
Yes.
And did you follow up specifically with Lieutenant Collins?
Yes.
And so what in your mind was outstanding on the Milton discovery that you were communicating with Lieutenant Collins regarding?
At what time?
Let's start at the beginning.
Again, it's the same type of information that you asked about before, as far as reports or photographs or any material that they might have pertinent to the case.
So whatever the Milton police turned over to you, would you have kept notes of that somewhere?
Yes.
Or there have been emails back and forth between you and Milton about what transpired?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any trouble getting information from the Milton Police Department?
No.
When you asked for things, did they return your email and give you what you were looking for?
Yes.
Were there any reports from the Milton Police Department that you say you didn't have before you turned the case over to ADA Hickman?
There was one report, yes.
And what was that report regarding?
Mr. Turner.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Turner.
And what about Mr. Turner?
There was a report in the materials that ADA Hickman turned over in 2025 that was, I believe, offered by Detective Sergeant Clifford Murphy pertaining to Mr. Turner that I had never seen before.
Okay, and do you know why that wasn't turned over by the Milton Police Department?
No.
Did you go down to the Milton Police Department
No, of course
and
not.
look through their file?
No.
No.
At any
Why would
point
I
in
do
time
that?
when you were representing the Commonwealth, in this case, did you go down to the Milton Police Department and look through their files?
No.
Is that something that you would normally do in a homicide case? Go to the police officer's office and ask for the file?
At what point in the case?
At any point.
Typically, that would be something that I would endeavor to do closer to trial.
Closer to trial?
Yes.
How much
So
closer
how
to
could you
trial?
make sure your obligation was satisfied if you're not meeting with the police until right before trial?
An ongoing duty and obligation that extends even beyond a trial.
Right, that's not my point. My point is if you're not meeting with them and you're not going through their information.
Right. So you have to remember something really important. Okay. This is obviously an assistant district attorney. And one thing I remind myself all the time when I'm listening back through testimony, I'm trying, and I hear myself saying, how does this happen? How I'm listening to Buchanan and Proctor, report in their testimonies about the day's events on January 29th, 2022, right? Oh, we went to the hospital and then we went to, Bill Reed's house. And it's like, how is this happening? Like, how did these guys not ever stop to consider anybody else but Karen Reed? And we're talking about like with 4 hours of investigation, right? And you go through all the configurations. Are they just like lazy, stupid, corrupt, like biased, like, and the truth is they're all those things. But the real question that you have to ask yourself when you are watching Adam Lally in this, and this is almost over, I don't do the whole thing, is why do these people feel like what they're doing is okay? Who is co-signing this, right? So many, many years ago, before I was afraid to have any responsibility in life, right, I decided that I was going to go to school for industrial psychology. And so that's like management science. And so I did the whole master's degree in management science. It was extraordinarily boring. And, it basically was just a way to learn something other than just psychology. And I'm glad I did it. It was an enlightening experience. But one of the first things that you learn in management science is that a culture, any organization, no matter what that organization looks like, no matter whether you're selling widgets or you're the district attorney's office, the culture at the bottom emanates from the very top, right? So in this case, you have to ask yourself an important question. Who is at the top? Where are these people getting it in their head that it's okay to just never turn over discovery, to just, not turn over search warrants, to just half-ass it to this extreme, right? And that's the question that you have to always keep in the back of your mind, because it's not just Adam Lally, right? It's everyone. So where are all of these people getting the idea that it's okay to behave this way? Like, that is the question.
How do you know you've turned everything over to the defense?
Because I've requested it and I've been given assurances or information indicating that that is what they have.
Let me ask you the same question about the state police. Did you ever go through the state police file while you were handling the case, as opposed to making requests and even sitting down with the state police to make, face-to-face requests on an ongoing basis and all the follow-up contacts that you had? Did you ever actually request their whole file to go through it yourself?
No.
Okay.
And can you tell us, was there a policy within the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office of sitting down with police departments, whether it's state police or Milton Police, and reviewing their file prior to trial?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. So
of course not.
How far in advance of trial do you finally sit down and go through, let's take the Milton Police box?
It would depend case to case, but it's something that I would probably do at least a few months ahead of trial.
A few months. And is that the first time that you put your hands on the actual box, or are you still dependent upon the Lieutenant Collins and other officers to give you what you're looking for?
Oh, that would be a time where I'm actually like, let me see the file and ensure that I have everything that you have.
Okay. And is there a reason, is there any prohibition to that meeting that you have a couple of months prior to trial happening right after indictment?
No, and that would be my practice now. So you're asking about sort of...
So one of the things that he makes a point to say, which I just think is so asinine, is so just totally absurd. Well, now I have all these practices and now I'm this organized person. But, back then in January of 2024, I didn't have these practices in place because I've grown so much since January of 2024, right? Okay. Right. Sure.
My general
Absolutely.
practice at the time.
I mean,
that
does
would
he
have been
believe this?
it at the time, but now I would do that
No.
much earlier in a case.
Definitely not.
Okay. And the state police the same way? Did you sit down with them at some point and look through their file, or you never looked through their file?
No, as his honor just asked, no, I didn't.
Okay.
Of course
so I guess my question is, how did it work? Did they only look through their file and send you what you're asking for? Or at any point did they send you, here's everything that we have?
My request and my ask was for everything they had. So as far as me then double checking to ensure that I have everything.
Wait. So what he's saying here, just in case you missed it, he's saying I'm asking for everything they have, but not checking to see whether or not what I think they have is what they sent me, or whether or not I have all of it, right? So there's no system in place for him to determine, oh yeah, they still owe me 6 search warrants, or this is still discovery material that is, not been turned over yet. And I better go, hunt down this cop or this investigator or this whoever to get that material, because it is my legal obligation to turn that over to the defense. And now think about what the ramifications here are. We've already seen, right, Karen Reed be acquitted completely. Thank God. And now you've got Miles King, who's killed somebody, and most people seem to think that, he's pretty good for it. Now, again, I have no idea. I don't know. But that's what it seems like. That's the indication. And then you have Brian Walsh. Now, I've not followed that case closely, but it appears that there's a lot of pretty convincing evidence that Brian Walsh, hacked up his wife. Okay. So these are situations where these people have gone so far beyond incompetence that it's very, very possible two totally violent people are about to be released back into the world because of this extraordinary, not only incompetence, but nefarious incompetence, right? Incompetence that really, it teeters on, it's hard to find the right word, because at the end of the day, what I suspect, and we're going to take a closer look at it, but what I suspect has happened here is exactly what most of us suspected happened with the Karen Reed case, right? These cops believed, because they believed Brian Albert, because Brian Albert had street cred when it came to Michael Proctor and Yuri Buchanan. They knew of him. They knew of the lore, of the mystique of Brian Albert. And so, of course, when Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe, right, a local girl who everybody probably knows, either one of her sisters or her parents or whatever, they knew the name, even if they didn't know her, they knew of her. When these two, names that they know and generally trust, are so convinced that, oh, Karen said she did it, or, her taillight was cracked, they just 100% believed that she did. And then were absolutely hell-bent from 2:30 p.m., 4 hours, 5 hours after Michael Proctor gets assigned this case, John O'Keefe case. They decide that Karen Reed did this, and then their objective is to make sure, keep this in mind, this is not just like a homicide. This is a police officer, a dead police officer. And this is how this group of investigators handles a police officer who has died. So really think about that, because you would think, like any normal person would think, that the cops in that case, in the case of Karen Reed, would have done everything they could possibly do to cross every T and dot every I to make sure that that conviction stood. So given that, what do you think it says about this office, about this DA's office and its investigators, right? Because remember, these cops worked for Michael Morrissey. They were his investigators. So, and think about the culture there. Because remember, that culture too emanates from the top. This is all one office, right? So you start start thinking about all of this. And it's like, well, what does it mean that this is the way this group of people, lawyers and investigators, cops, whatever, the way that they handle homicide cases? It's
Thing they have, that would be something that would occur later on. And as I just indicated, my practice now would be to do that much earlier in the case.
Of course it is.
Okay.
Because now he hunts down discovery, but before, which was 8 months ago, he didn't hunt down, but now he does. So we're very grateful for that.
When you go in this case, you knew we had picked a September 8th trial date, right?
I was aware, yes.
Okay. So you knew the case was ready for trial on September 8th. When were you planning on sitting down with the Milton police and going through their file?
As the case was reassigned to ADA Hickman around the time that we selected the trial date, I don't know that I had a specific plan to do that. I did have a specific plan to meet with ADA Hickman to go through the file to ensure that she had everything that was there.
So by the time she had taken over in January of 2025, you had not made any plans to sit down with the Milton police to go through their file, is that right?
She had taken over prior to that, but no, I hadn't.
Okay, and the same with the state police, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so when you're updating ADA Hickman, when she takes over the case, do you tell her, I've never actually seen the files, it's on my list of things to do, but I never get down there, you should get down and take a look at the files?
Not that specific, but yes.
What do you tell her?
That, during the regular trial preparation or meeting with the officers as it gets closer to trial, I would do that, but I hadn't done that yet.
Done what? Do what? Notice how vague he is there.
Is there like when the police give you something, do they just email it to you, or is there like a list to say, we gave ADA Lally these documents on this date?
As far as their list?
Yes.
I have no idea what they have.
Okay. So you don't know, as you sit here today, if they have an index of all the things they say they gave to you?
I don't.
Okay. And do you, on the opposite side, have an index of the things you got from them?
It would be contained within those
emails.
Requests? Yes.
All right. So at some point, do you print out all your requests and say, okay, let me just make sure I have everything here? I've been requesting something since, December of 2021. I want to make sure I have everything.
Do you realize, just so it's clear, we're talking about December of 2021. Like, when she first said that, I thought she was like a euphemism. Like I thought she was kind of kidding. Like, oh, like 2021, the same way I might be like back in 2002, right? But no, that's when the case began. So that's when discovery should have, originally began to be turned over in the case. Like, we're talking about years now. We're not talking about weeks or even months, right? And the tragedy here is, like, Karen Reed happened to have, thank goodness, initially the money and these attorneys that were willing, and Turtle Boy, who stumbles upon this case and is willing to, literally and figuratively get out the megaphone and start screaming and yelling and get all this attention on this district attorney's office. But that's right. That's the only reason why this is happening now. This guy, how long has this guy been in jail? There's not even been a trial yet. Like, what? That alone is distressing beyond distressing. What do you mean this guy hasn't even gone to trial yet? He's been in jail for how many years? It's crazy.
Sit down and do that at some point to make sure everything you requested, you've received?
My general practice would be, yes, that would be as I know we're getting closer to a trial date.
Lally was grilled by King's defense attorney Rosemary Scapiccio, who questioned why it was taking so long to share discovery evidence with the defense as required by law, including search warrants collected by former state trooper Michael Proctor.
Yeah. So that's the real question, right? Is Adam Lally hiding something with these search warrants? Because there's two separate issues at hand when it comes to the case in front of us right now. When it comes to this Adam Lally situation, we've got two things going on at once. You've got the general way that this office, this district attorney's office, handles discovery materials. And I think it's pretty safe to say, from just the three cases that we've now heard about between this Miles King case, Karen Reed, and Brian Walsh, it's pretty safe to say that there's clear evidence of late discovery. Oh, and Turtle Boy, Aidan Kearney, who we're going to get to, I promise. That's a whole nother example of just egregious discovery violations. But then there's this other issue, something very specific to search warrants. And this is interesting. This is where I think this is where the line between incompetence and malice gets crossed, right? And this is where I think you can start to see where Michael Morrissey's fingerprints, you can really start to see where he kind of figures in, and how this tendency to like not think the rules apply to him. That's the vibe, right? It's this sense that the rules don't really apply to us. We can kind of do whatever we want and we'll get away with it. Because guess what? How many years did they get away with it for? They've been getting away with it for a very, very long time. And to this day, guaranteed, if you were to speak privately off the record with Yuri Buchanan or Brian Tully or any of the guys that were in Michael Morrissey's homicide division or unit, guaranteed all of them don't think that they did anything wrong. No chance they think they did anything wrong. Because to all of these guys, and this is what makes this whole story even more distressing, they don't think they did anything wrong. Michael Proctor, with a straight face, is appealing his termination. No, really, he is appealing it.
Now, in addition to the defendant's vehicle, what, if anything else, was taken and seized as evidence from the defendant on that morning?
After confirming the phone Ms. Reed was holding was, in fact, hers, we told her we were seizing the phone and we'd be writing a search warrant for that.
All right. Now, I included that, piece from Michael Proctor testifying in Karen Reed's first trial for a reason. It always bothered me. Always. It's been driving me nuts for a very long time that in the Karen Reed case, these guys, before 2 o'clock or at 2 o'clock, on their way to Dighton to basically acquire, to seize Karen Reed's SUV, they don't call. Their first phone call is not to a search warrant. It's not even to say like, oh, Lieutenant Tully, should we get a search warrant before we go up to Dighton and get this car? There's no discussion about that. There's just call the tow truck, go get the Dighton PD to have a uniform presence on the site, on the scene. That's why they wanted Barros there. That's why they call up for those cops to come. They wanted a tow truck and a uniform presence. So explain this to me, right? Like, I'm not a lawyer. Is it normal standard practice without a search warrant to just take somebody's property because you don't like them? Because somebody else says, oh, they did something illegal? Because let's be honest, what evidence did they have? Right? And isn't it supposed to be the decision of the judge to decide whether or not there's enough evidence to secure a search warrant to take somebody's personal property? Like, why do these guys get to decide that? Right? Why is Michael Proctor making that determination? Now, that has always bothered me. But again, I'm not a lawyer. So, This is typical, by the way, Adam Lally, the way he asks this question, it doesn't draw your attention to the fact there's anything weird about that. It's just like, oh, yep, we were just going to go seize the vehicle. There's no like attention being drawn to the fact that there's out of sequence stuff happening. It's just, yep, we're going to go get the car now. Okay. So to me, that has always struck me as something's not right about that, right? And in his scumbag ways, Adam Lally tries very backhandedly to offer these subtle explanations throughout the first trial with questions for Proctor, Buchanan, and Brian Tully about this very thing, which we'll get to see a little bit if we get to it. So he tries to like provide us with an explanation without asking anyone that question directly, without drawing our attention to the fact that they did not have a search warrant when they went to Karen Reed to her father's house in Dayton at 2:30 or 3:10, whatever it was, when they actually show up at William Reed's house to get Karen Reed's cell phone and SUV. He does not want to draw your attention to the fact that there was no search warrant or even a discussion about getting a search warrant. And by the way, when does a search warrant appear for that SUV? Guess. Guess how long it takes this group of cops to get a search warrant for that car. Guess. And to me, this is the part that I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand how that's okay. We'll get to it, I promise. But I want to know what you guys think. How long do you think it took these guys to get a search warrant? If you don't know, I mean, just guess.
In person.
And do they take place at the DA's office or at the state police?
Well, I mean, in this specific instance, the state police is attached to the DA's office, so it's the same building. So whether it was
same building,
my end of the hall, their end of the hall, I don't know.
My end of the hall, their end of the hall.
It all starts.
All right. Now, I included this because, obviously Mark Better is one of my favorite people in the world. But in addition to that, this is important because here it's a clip from Young Jerks where Better is explaining the protocol, the process around search warrants. So in a real life DA's office, not Norfolk County, how does this happen? Like, what is the normal protocol? Because again, I have no idea, right? I don't have no idea what the normal way to get a search warrant would typically be. What's the process here? So when I heard this, you had to peel me off the floor for a second, but certainly it made sense.
At the beginning, which in this story is the flawed procedure or lack thereof and process in that office. Why would you delegate the task of search warrants exclusively to a state trooper and not have a prosecutor involved in that process? For any number of reasons. Number one, if the prosecutor prepares the warrant, has the trooper sign it, makes a copy of it right out of the gate, I don't need to ask the trooper for the warrant. I have it. That's number one. Number two, you want to make sure that there is probable cause contained within the warrant. You want to make sure it's drafted properly. You want to make sure you don't get too cute. You don't reveal things as a prosecutor you might not want to reveal, or say things you don't want to say, or make sure there are things that you do say. Why would you outsource that to somebody like Michael Proctor rather than an experienced prosecutor? I mean, in the office where I come from, the ADAs wrote all the warrants. Prepare it for the officer, go over it with him, have him or her sign it. You sign it. The prosecutor would sign the warrant. Bring the detective down to court, and you know who else would go to court? The DA, a lot of the times. Just make sure if the judge has any questions, which the judge has a right to do. Most warrants are rubber stamped, but why wouldn't you do that? And instead, you're left with a situation where the same prosecutor who was part of the railroading of Karen Reed and did things in that case, which clearly, well, I say clearly, in my opinion, I think most sensible viewers would agree, that did things that were improper, unethical, whether it relates to Sallyport video, whether it relates to eliciting false testimony from a sergeant who is involved with inverted video, whether it relates to shenanigans of not disclosing other video that you knew or should have been aware of.
Yeah, I mean, right. So this was important. I would never have known that, right? I mean, outside of what, like Law and Order, where you actually see on some, completely fictitious television show how the police and the district attorney's office are working together. Why would I even consider that it's supposed to be the DA's office who's ensuring that search warrants are prepared and carried out correctly, right? So, but here's the important point of this. There's 3 different people, groups of people involved with a search warrant, right? You've got cops, you've got lawyers, obviously, and then you've got judges who sign off. And so you tell me, okay, how is it that at no point any of these judges, at no point any of them stopped and said, I'm noticing a pattern here. I'm noticing a pattern where search warrants are not being turned over in discovery, or I'm noticing that, discovery is taking longer, than it should to show up at all. Like, how is it that this just keeps happening unless these cops and this DA's office has a list of judges that they know that they can go to who are just going to rubber stamp, right? As Betterow says, whatever they're asking for, even if it's after the fact, right? And remember, none of these guys have ever had this kind of attention on them. And that's really important as you're trying to think through, how does this Karen Read case happen? How does it happen? Just every aspect of this, as Gina says here, right? Some real murderers could get off because they wanted to pin it on the girl, right? Exactly. They are so sloppy. But that's the thing. Like, they don't even know that they're sloppy. There's such, it's like, we can all look at this group of investigators and we can see just like the level of incompetence. But the thing about Michael Proctor that always has struck me, and the reason why it was always very obvious to me that he is a nothing, there's no world where Michael Proctor does any of this shit by himself. No world where the guys above him are not totally aware of planting evidence. There's no world where Michael Proctor goes to the bathroom to avoid being vulgar, right? Without his superiors knowing about it, because he's a nobody, he's a nothing. But think about how he doesn't think twice about telling his superior officers he's looking for nudes in Karen Read's phone. Do we all think that was a joke? How many of us think he was kidding when he said that? It may have been a joke in the sense that it's funny that he was looking for nudes, but we all know he was looking for nudes. Because that's what Michael Proctor would do. That's what somebody like a Michael Proctor would do with the cell phone of Karen Read in his hand. And we all know that, right? So they can say whatever they want about it being a joke. That wasn't a joke. And you know what? It's not the point. The point is that this is someone who was talking to his bosses, okay? A lieutenant and a sergeant. And guess who else? The 2 guys in charge of all the evidence, the 2 evidence officers, right? Oh my God, you can't even make it up. So those text messages of Michael Proctor's, they are so revealing, not only because of just how salacious and horrific and the bias that we are so clearly able to see from the way he talks about Karen Read, but what we're getting is the culture of this group. And this group, remember, don't ever forget, Michael Morrissey sits at the top of this culture. So he's the one that must be green lighting all of this behavior. And it can't just be him, because all these people routinely are going in front of judges, right? Routinely They've got to go in front of judges, what, every day? Maybe they don't have homicides every day, but how many times in a standard week does a standard, big town, Norfolk County, it's not a small county. How many times are they going for search warrants in a week, right? So people are rubber stamping all this garbage, and that is so important. You can't forget that, right? This is not just an Adam Lally problem.
Whether it relates
this is a bigger
to
problem.
An officer from another police department, from Dighton perhaps, about what he clearly implied or told you and what you didn't disclose to the defense.
Brian Higgins, who's the ATF agent that was in the house, signed a proffer agreement, and he sat down with FBI agents and a U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney, and gave a proffer. And that proffer was read out in some format, not the whole thing, where Yannetti said, and during the federal proffer, Brian Higgins admitted to destroying his cell phone and tearing up his SIM card because he was told to do so by Michael Morrissey, the DA.
All right. Now, you can say what you want about Sean McDonough. Some people love him. Other people think he gets kind of, ahead of himself with kind of conspiracy thinking, whatever. Here's the most important thing about that statement, right? About what he just said. The idea that it was Michael Morrissey's office that told Brian Albert and Brian Higgins to destroy their cell phones, you know what? It almost had to be. And the reason why is because their cell phones were destroyed the day before the defense was going to have that motion approved, whatever, official. The official motion to seize the phones so that the phones could be confiscated and the Cellbrite reports could be conducted. So you think that it's just a coincidence? Then that would have happened the day before. So it had to be somebody from the DA's office. It had to have been a lawyer, somebody who knew what the legal situation was from the DA's office, who contacted Brian Albert or Brian Higgins or both of them to say, oh, hey, go get rid of your phones because, the defense is about to come down, with whatever motion to get the phones. And we know, remember who were the 5 phone calls that Jennifer McCabe makes when the feds come to her house and she says she needs 10 minutes to go brush her teeth? Well, what was it? The second or third phone call she makes is to the DA's office, right? So, these details just can't be ignored. Like, think about how fucking crazy that is. If you have nothing, like if I'm Brian Albert, okay, if I'm Brian Albert and I'm Brian Higgins and I am innocent and I have nothing to do with the death of John O'Keefe, wouldn't you be like throwing your phones at the investigators? Wouldn't you be like, please look at my phone. I will do, look at everything. Look at anything. Look at geofence data. Look at my health apps. Look at anything and everything. Look at my dog. Here's Chloe. I'd be bringing Chloe to the office, right? The next morning. Here, look, meet Chloe. Chloe, see how nice she is? Right? Right? So if you didn't do this, why would you be destroying your phones? And why would the DA be telling you to do that? Right? I mean, look, I have no doubt in my mind who did this. I know who is responsible. Do I know exactly play by play, which, was Brian Higgins the one, what was the choreographed sequence of events that led to John O'Keefe's death? That part I'm still working on. But I have no doubt that Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and probably the nephew are the ones responsible directly for the death of John O'Keefe. That is not in question for me anymore because of the investigating that I've done, right? So I'm not like, I'm not bothered by that question anymore. But this is the kind of stuff, like, how could anybody defend that? You tell me. If you are a defender of the people inside that house, how does that kind of stuff like roll off your back? Well, oh yeah, makes total sense that the DA would call, Brian Higgins and Brian Albert and tell them to destroy their phones the day before the defense is supposed to confiscate that. No, that's like so logical. Like, right? What the fuck? It's crazy. It's crazy to me. And the thing is, so another thing, right? Another thing. This is another thing to think about. So I hear people, saying, right, like that Adam Lally is apathetic. But think about the number of hours. I mean, how did he was the only attorney for how many witnesses? How many witnesses did he have to prepare for the first trial? Like, I have a better sense of that after the second trial because, right, like think about it. The defense added Alessi and just hearing about having the interns, like now that we've had a chance to listen to Unetti and Alessi and, Jackson and everybody talking about their experience, we're getting a much better sense of how much relief they got from adding all of this support. So you think about like what Adam Lally was doing basically by himself. I guess he had Laura McLaughlin or whatever her name is. I don't know, I don't know what she does. I think she's like the paper, the legal writer or whatever that means. But she's not the one, going over the Q&A. She's not the one that's actually asking the questions to all of these witnesses. So this isn't a guy who's afraid to work. I mean, I don't know how many witnesses he dragged into that first trial, but that took a tremendous amount of effort on his part. And he had to know, and we're going to take a look at Barrows. And the reason why Officer Barrows is important for tonight, for our purposes here, is because it's a quick testimony. So you guys don't have to endure the hours and hours of testimony that I endure to try to get at some of this information. But it's such a clear example of Adam Lally's scumbag ways. Exactly the way that he behaves that flies under the radar so that you don't notice. So it's like, and I mean, the Barrows situation is like the greatest example. It really, really is, because you can see precisely how he kind of hides information right in front of you. He brings information out right in front of you and then hides it by making these insinuations around it that plant just enough doubt in your mind to negate whatever the information is that's being presented. And I'll show you exactly what I mean so you can see it. But it's crazy. Like, this guy is not, he's not a benign figure. Like, he's a true scumbag. He really is.
The video shows Reed's SUV being pulled
here's a
into
great
the Police
example.
Department after
Perfect
it had been
timing.
seized as evidence.
The jurors may have felt a little bit tricked or deceived.
I don't know
That's
who
because
this
the
guy is,
prosecutor
but I had
never
to
mentioned that
include
the
it.
video was inverted, showing the driver's side, not the passenger side.
The jurors may have felt tricked or deceived. Do you think? You think? I'm sorry. The mirrored video from the first trial. What an incredible example of exactly what I'm talking about. So you think that scumbag Adam Lally did not know that this video was mirrored? Come on.
That's important because prosecutors say Reed's passenger side taillight was damaged by this point after she had allegedly backed into John O'Keefe and killed him.
Somebody wanted that video to be inverted.
My instinct is it was probably a mistake.
See, that's what everybody does. It's probably a mistake because it is so hard to imagine, number one, that somebody like Adam Lally could be anything more than just totally incompetent. He's so easy to just write off as incompetent that I get And you know what? And I know that like most attorneys don't want to see another attorney, especially a prosecutor who is supposed to be like the justice warrior of all. Nobody wants to see a fellow attorney as the piece of garbage that Adam Lally is. I get that, but how much evidence do we need at this point? Come on. Is this mirrored video not enough evidence? Do we need more? This is one tiny example, but boy, is it a good example.
Medwed says prosecutors probably didn't notice the video was inverted, not
Didn't
until the defense
notice.
attorney pointed out some writing in the video is
Remember that the prosecutor's office, in this case, the lawyers, the prosecutors, are down the hall from the homicide detectives who work for the prosecutor's office. So when you say prosecutors in this case, around the Karen Read case, they're kind of one thing, right? They're like one group. They're not two separate groups. It's like one group. So now this guy is trying, I don't know who this person is, some attorney, is trying to insinuate that none of these cops, nobody knew, lawyers, cops, nobody knew that this video was mirrored? Nobody knew. Okay. Well, then how did the timestamp get turned around?
reversed. Medwid says intentionally deceiving a jury would be risky for the prosecutor's career and for the case if it was exposed.
Okay. Important. This is why I left this in this news video. So here's the thing. Would it be risky though? Would it be risky if you're working for Michael Morrissey? If you're working for a corrupt DA with a group of corrupt cops, not corrupt in the sense that they are putting innocent people in jail, but corrupt in the sense that they don't think much about, fudging dates on search warrants or, saying they were one cell phone is two cell phones, in an email agreement with the defense attorney to turn over a cell phone. They don't think anything of doing whatever they feel like doing in order to get who they think is the bad guy or girl, right? So this is not a group of people who are looking to put innocent people in jail. It's people who think that they're entitled because what they're doing is putting the bad guys and girls in jail. That in their minds, right? So you really have to think about that. There's no risk if you don't think there's anything wrong with what you're doing. If everybody around you is co-signing your behavior. So this guy is reasoning logically the way that most people do when they look at this case at first. They looked at the Karen Read cases at first. They did what all of us did. Oh no, she was probably drunk and just ran into him. Like there's no conspiracy. Come on, right? Of course, because it's hard to imagine how this kind of incompetence meets nefariousness could merge in this very specific way, right? But yet, here we are. This is it. This is what's happening, right? Because when you have everybody turning the other way, when you have judges and all of the DAs and assistant DAs, the whole group, all the investigators are just co-signing this kind of garbage behavior, there's no risk of getting caught. Do you think that Adam Lally thought that he was going to get in trouble from Judge Cannoni? Do you think there was ever a second, ever, at any point across both trials where Adam Lally ever felt like this judge, that Judge Beverly Cannoni, was going to yell at him, was going to say that he did something bad or wrong? No. Hell no. No freaking way.
Why would the prosecution take this risk?
Because there wasn't any risk. That's why.
Here's the video after we have uninverted it. There does appear to be a person near the passenger side taillight, and the defense says that's Trooper Michael Proctor, whom they've accused of intentionally breaking the taillight to try to frame Karen Reed.
And just in case you don't know this yet, it wasn't just Michael Proctor. It was also the chief of Canton Police at the time, Chief Berkowitz. He was also back there behind the taillight.
Trooper Michael Proctor showed pieces from the taillight of Karen Reed's SUV, which he says he first noticed when he saw it outside Reed's parents' home following John O'Keefe's death.
The right rear taillight had such large pieces missing from it.
The defense says Proctor broke the taillight after the SUV was seized as evidence and brought to the Canton Police Department. Proctor denied that.
Sergeant Mechanic and I never touched any part of that vehicle.
Proctor says he never made any decisions about the case on his own and that he conducted nearly all of the interviews with other officers present.
So that's important. And one of the things that Proctor says that's actually true, he didn't make any decisions on his own. He didn't have to. They were, it's kind of ridiculous because, right, like Buchanan goes to great lengths, really basically throws the whole case away, throws the trial away, throws Karen Reed's conviction away during the second trial because he will not throw Michael Proctor under the bus. He will not say that Michael Proctor did not conduct himself with integrity. Under no circumstances, like Yuri Buchanan will not say a bad word about Michael Proctor, right? And so much so that it ends up like that's the first, basically you could argue that was like where the whole thing turned, right? When you listen to the jurors, certainly juror number 11, she talked about Yuri Buchanan. She's not the only one that she said, I was sitting right next to him. He was shaking the whole time. And if you see Buchanan in the Brian Walsh case, which if we get to it tonight, hopefully we will, you can take a look. You see he's like a completely different person. So obviously he knew that the lights, the cameras, there was a tremendous amount of attention on him at the Karen Reed trial during this particular moment in time, right? When Hank Brennan is questioning him and he's on the stand for freaking 3 days, Yuri Buchanan. So my point is these guys didn't do anything alone. They really were a team. Like that's kind of the absurdity of this. I don't think Michael Proctor would have ever thought to do anything by himself. And that's the whole point, right? When you're working for a Brian Tully, who's working for a Michael Morrissey, where basically anything goes to try to get the girl, to try to pin it on the girl, anything goes, we'll do anything to make sure that Karen Reed is convicted. What does it matter, right? Michael Proctor, his role is just do what you're freaking told. That is his job. That was it. Michael Proctor was like a bulldog. It's hard for me to find the right metaphor for Michael Proctor because he's really just like the guy that does whatever you tell him to do. That's it. He's just going to do whatever you say.
He said he does know the Elbert family who owned the home where O'Keefe was found, but only through his sister and not well.
I'd classify it as acquaintances.
Earlier, another investigator, Sergeant Yuri Buchanan, was again grilled about video of Reed's SUV at the Canton Police Department. The video was originally shown to the jury horizontally inverted.
Do you believe that what the jurors are seeing right here is a true and accurate surveillance footage of the Sally Port that night?
Yes, it's just mirrored.
Defense attorney Alan Jackson said about 2/3 of the mirrored video is missing and that people in the video seem to appear out of nowhere. Buchanan explained that like this.
I could tell you that the video is triggered by motion.
It was clearly the right side of the car. They asked questions about the right side of the car. You'll recall, Mr. Lally asked Sergeant Buchanan.
At any point in time when you were present with this vehicle in the Sally Port garage this evening of January 29, 2022, did either yourself or did you observe Proctor touch or manipulate in any way the right rear passenger side area of that vehicle?
No, we did not.
And while he was asking the question, what appeared to be the right side of the car was looking at you. The video was still up. And that trick might have worked until we got up to cross-examine him. And
Right. How about that? How about the fact, like, what if Alan Jackson didn't catch that, right? Like, what if he didn't see it? What if he just wasn't paying attention? They would have just snuck that right by. The jury never realizes that there's a whole group of people mysteriously coming and going right on the other side of the taillight, and all you can see is like little heads like right behind the SUVs staring at and right in front of the taillight in question. It's insane. They actually showed this in court. And Lally asks Buchanan, is this a fair and accurate representation of what it was like in the Sally Port? And he's like, yeah. Did you guys go anywhere near the right rear taillight? Nope, never. What? Right? It's like how this entire debacle, sham, was not shut down right then and there by the judge. Could you imagine if you're the judge on this case? Like if that happened in my courtroom, like I would have to have the entire, like everybody would have to leave because I would be so furious. I would need time to calm down before I could speak in any kind of useful way. I would need everyone to clear out because I would be screaming at the top of my lungs. Like, how could you do this? Okay. But again, the answer here is really simple. Why not? This is what they've been doing for 20 years. This is how they operate. So what? What if it's mirrored? What? Change some video around, we'll move the time and the date, and we'll just say it was motion activated. We'll just, whatever. So what? We'll just lose the videos that are important for the defense, or we just won't turn them over. And if we have a judge who just rubber stamps everything we do, it won't matter anyway because the judge is on our side. That is what happened here. And these morons, because that is what they are, make no mistake, the problem here is you don't have, these are not like brilliant individuals, okay? They got lazy and sloppy. That's what happened. They got sloppy. They got sloppy and arrogant and committed this, like, the biggest sin of them all, of hubris. You start to think that nothing doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. No one's ever going to find out. You're untouchable. And then all of a sudden, the eyes of the world are staring at you. And these guys never imagined in a trillion lifetimes that we would all be sitting here screaming and yelling about this. Never, ever, ever. Couldn't have imagined a world where they would be getting in trouble and be disbanded because of this kind of behavior. That is how they got away with it, because it's not just a Michael Proctor problem. It is all the attorneys in that office problem. And there are, make no mistake, judges who have been rubber stamping this shit for a very long time. There has to have been. And we saw it.
Only then, on the second day of his testimony, did he have to admit that the video was actually inverted. It was backward. And it was cleverly inverted at that. The timestamp had the proper orientation, which means that timestamp had to be removed, the video inverted, and the timestamp placed back on it.
I testify that this is a accurate scene.
So based on all the evidence, I conclude that there has not been the candor required of all lawyers has not been demonstrated here. I find that there have been repeated misrepresentations made to the court by defense counsel, and I conclude that they were deliberate concerning the relationship with the ARCA witnesses.
Okay. Like, if you didn't know anything about this case and I played that for you, you wouldn't blink an eye until she says on the part of the defense. Right? And I remember hearing that happen in real time and just like losing my mind, like not even being able to keep it together because of how unimaginable that sentence, those words were coming out of Judge Cannoni's mouth. But you know what? That's exactly the point, right? Remember, this is Morrissey's like high school buddy. They both grew up in Quincy, born and bred, both their families, right? Like, you know, these are people know each other and have known each other for a very, very long time. This is a small community. You can't ever forget that, right? And maybe I will get to it tonight, and I think we're probably not going to get to it. I never get to all the things I want. It's terrible. There's just so much. So, but you've got to see Kenneth Berkowitz, his retirement quote party that was aired on local Canton TV and cable TV. It's really boring, but man, is it insight. It's an insightful thing to watch because you see all the relationships and how close everybody is. You see how tight Helena Rafferty is with Michael Morrissey, how many years they've worked together. You see how tight they were with Berkowitz. You see how tight he was, even with like Josh Levy's office, right? Even with like the feds in Boston, you see how closely all of these people are to each other and how long they've known each other and how these relationships, they're more than just acquaintances. They are like, these people love each other, right? They love each other. Like it's important when you're trying to figure out like, how could this kind of garbage happen? And you start to see, oh, well, this is how it's happening. These folks know each other. They've known each other for a long, long time. And it's just become like the culture. It's just automatic practice. Just how we do. That's it. It's how we do.
Now, Sergeant Mechanic, are you aware of a warrant that was executed on that vehicle on February 1st of 2022?
I am aware.
Okay, so anybody who was guessing earlier about when the warrant appeared for Karen's SUV, February 1st, 2022. So they went and acquired her vehicle, seized the car at 2:30, or that's when they left to go to Dighton, right? They call Officer Barrows. They ask him to get the tow truck to meet over at William Reed's house. They all arrive around 3:10, 3:30. And that is when they immediately go to seize Karen's SUV. They don't have a search warrant. They don't have a search warrant until February 1st of 2022. So how is, don't you need like evidence and a judge to say that you do have enough evidence? Like at that point, what was the evidence that they had? Nothing. No evidence. These two morons who at some point saw, a high-speed car accident were like, oh, he's got one shoe. He must have been hit by Karen Reed. It's just, oh my, it would be funny. Like it would be hysterical if it wasn't just disgusting. If it wasn't just totally disgusting. So I don't understand it. Somebody needs to explain to me how that is okay. How are they even allowed to do that? Right? Well, I mean, I kind of know the answer because some judge somewhere turned a blind eye and said, oh, yeah, you had enough evidence. This is, by the way, the same group of investigators who swear up and down they didn't have enough evidence to go into 34 Fairview. No, they couldn't have gotten a search warrant to go into 34 Fairview, even though there was a dead police officer on this man's front lawn. They didn't have enough evidence for that, but they could go take Karen Reed's car and cell phone. No problem. Who needs search warrants when we can just do whatever the fuck we want, right? Because that's how these guys roll. And then, well, when Miles King and Brian Walsh go free and murdering whoever they murder next, this is who you have to thank. You can thank Yuri Buchanan, right? And Michael Morrissey and Adam Lally and this group, because it is their egregious behavior for years and years and years and years and years that has co-signed all of it. All of them are guilty. All of them.
And you yourself were not present for that. Is that correct?
I was not present for the execution, no, sir.
Trooper Proctor was, as far as you're aware. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, the next time that you were within the Canton Police Department Sally Port Garage with the vehicle was on February 2nd. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I entrusted that whatever discovery I was requesting, I would get at some point in a timely fashion and then turn it over.
But you didn't get it. You asked for it 5 times. You didn't get it. You had to go see him. You have him right there now, and you still don't say, give me your file? Let me go through it.
No, I did not.
Scapicio filed a motion to dismiss the King case, arguing that the DA's office isn't doing a proper job collecting and sharing evidence in a timely fashion.
It's so haphazard that I'm concerned for every defendant out there as to whether or not they're getting appropriate discovery through the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office.
For me or for Mr. Why don't I start with you, Mr. Cosgrove? Go right ahead.
Okay. So now we're moving away from Mr. Lally because now we're talking about Mr. Cosgrove, right? So this is the guy that was a judge who came out of judgeship retirement to, I guess, take over the Turtle Boy case or the witness intimidation Turtle Boy case. And apparently now, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with some of this, right? This is the situation where for the Betterell letters, this is where they come in. So since what, December of 2023, that's about, right? Because that's about when Turtle Boy goes to jail, right? For that whole other, so we're talking about late 2023, early 2024, when they would have to start turning over discovery material. Okay. So did they do that? What do you think? Let's find out.
Your Honor, answered the discovery order the last time you were here.
So the last time they were here, which was what, like 2 months before this, give or take, maybe a little bit more than that, there was a discovery order because, oh yeah, they were trying to get discovery materials then, and guess what? They didn't have any. They didn't get them. So now they're back to do this again. And guess what?
I made substantial progress on it. I can't say I fully complied with it. But
Can't say I fully complied with the discovery that I was supposed to turn over, but I've made some progress.
I have about, let's see, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 6,000 pages of discovery too.
So he's saying that he has about 5,000 to 6,000 pages of discovery that he's turning over to Aidan and the defense, right? Is that true?
We'll provide Mr. Bradle today.
I looked back, Your Honor, and my first discovery request was February of 24. And second and third, were the months following. And in fairness, counsel for the Commonwealth was not the prosecutor of record at the time, but the rules are the rules, and we need this stuff, and it's gone on way too long. So these are the 10 things that I think are very important, maybe 9.
Mr. Cosgrove, might you want to take that 2 weeks and respond to all of those? Can you give me an extra week? Or give me an extra week. Okay. All right.
He needs an extra week because now he's only been doing this for a year, but like an extra week. Yeah, I can't get it in 2. I need an extra week. And you can see the look on his face. You see, like, this is a game to this guy. This is funny. He thinks this is funny. This is a big joke. It's a big joke. It's very funny. And of course, it's disgusting and absurd. It's disgusting and absurd. And this is the problem with this group of people. They are not like, there's something that's just not clicking, right? It's not registering the reality of what is going on. Cosgrove thinks this is funny. He thinks, that Aidan Kearney is what? A joke of some kind. Just doesn't get it, right? He just doesn't get it. And it doesn't even matter what you think of Turtle Boy, right? Because the point is, Turtle Boy, and you got to give this man credit. Like, he's got balls of steel. He really does. The fact that this guy would go with a freaking bullhorn screaming in front of like Brian Albert's house, Jennifer McCabe's house, like Michael Proctor's house, it's awesome. It's hilarious. It's funny as hell. And the fact that these people would then try to turn around and say that, oh, that he's doing something wrong because he's trying to expose the fact that they are, murderers. I mean, it's disgusting. It's just disgusting. This was their way to try to shut him up, right? And, the truth is, Cosgrove doesn't have a clue. This guy, to me, I've investigated him a little bit. He's like senile. He doesn't really know what's going on. To him, it's unimaginable that the DA could be as corrupt as he obviously is. So he doesn't understand what he stepped into. He really doesn't. And it's all a big game. It's a big game. It's a big joke. It's very funny, except that the walls are tumbling down, right? And it's very clear that it's coming down. The walls are coming down. So you have to make a decision, Cosgrove. Are you going to be on the right side on this, or are you going to be on the wrong side? And of course, these guys are doing God knows what with this Kate Peter clown. Like, is this really happening? The fact that, and we can take a look at the Betterow letters, the most recent Betterow letter that came following this hearing, because as it turns out, according to Mark Betterow, the 6,000 pages of discovery are 5,000 pages that are blank and or blacked out. Right? Yes. Oh, and you know what? I agree with that too, to some degree. Ms. Holmes, it's so annoying. I can't see because this stupid thing is in the way, so I can't see your name. Ms. Holmes 66, I think that says, I disagree with you. He knows. He knows to some degree. And the reason why I say he doesn't know completely is because there was the first time I really saw him in action. He was defending, he was going back. What were we listening to? He was listening to Aidan talking about Brian Tully. So it was a clip about Brian Tully and about like the house burning down. And if the house burned down, like he wouldn't be upset because he's a terrible human being. Something about that, right? And as Cosgrove is listening to this, he makes some comment that made it very clear to me that like he doesn't understand what century he's in. That's like, so when I say he's kind of clueless, there's a part of him that just like doesn't understand or isn't like putting all of the pieces together. Oh, that's what it was. He was talking about how absurd it is that Adam Lally could have ever been colluding with Ms. Kate Peter. That was the assertion that he was basically saying how absurd, like it's so absurd, these claims that this woman who signed that affidavit that the defense turned in, they're so outlandish, they're so ridiculous because Adam Lally would, this is such a ridiculous claim. I don't know that he doesn't believe that it's a ridiculous claim. That's the point that I was making. He seems like he's just like not 100% understanding all of the pieces, but of course he's a judge. He's a judge. This guy is one of the people that was probably rubber stamping alongside Judge Beverly Cannoni. Again, why do you think they brought him in? Out of all of the people that could have taken this case, why is Cosgrove being brought back? That's another question that you want to ask yourself. There was nobody else in the DA's office that could have come in to take the case against Turtle Boy. They wanted to bring in a former judge who's coming out of retirement. How does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, it's not even like a good old boys club. It's like they're just, I don't even know like what to call it. They're just a disgrace. It's like, I don't know if it's Boston corruption. I don't know how to even speak about it, right? Because when you hear the word corruption, it doesn't feel like the exact right word, because corruption elicits this idea of like dirty cops that are like stealing cocaine out of the evidence locker and like selling it on the street, right? That's not what we're talking about here. So is it corruption? Absolutely. It's a form of corruption, but it's not that kind of corruption. It's almost worse in the sense that They all seem to think that they're doing something good. So it's entitled. It's like horrific behavior that they write off as okay because they think they're putting the bad guys away. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. It's like more nefarious than just a bunch of dirty cops that do shit like steal drugs out of the evidence locker. It's worse than that because it's like they believe that what they're doing is right, is righteous, right? Moral superiority, correct. That's exactly right. That's the way that they come across. Look at his face. Look at this smug face as he asks for another week to get all the discovery in. And guess what's going to happen in 3 weeks when we come back in August for that next hearing? You think he's going to have all the discovery turned in? Of course not. Is the judge going to say anything about the fact that he's turned in 5,000 blank pages or blacked out pages? Of course not. Of course not.
But it is, Mr. Bradle makes a very good point.
Disgusting.
As we all know, I think that it's important that the discovery be turned over so that we can bring a timely trial to the case.
Now, is it typical practice in conducting homicide or death investigations as far as civilian witnesses are concerned?
Speak of the devil.
Seize their personal cell phone?
It's not uncut. It happens. Yes.
And is that a practice that occurs with respect to every single witness in every single case?
No.
And so what are sort of the parameters or what would be some of the reasons that certain civilian witnesses' cell phones would be seized versus others?
Well, you use the word seize, so.
All right, so here it is. Here's another example. So instead of asking Proctor and Buchanan in the first Karen Reed trial, Adam Lally decides he's going to ask Tully about the procedures around seizing things like cell phones, right? Of course, without a search warrant, right? Because these are all being seized without search warrants. So what the real question that Lally is asking here is it normal to seize cell phones without a search warrant? And of course, Tully's like, well, no, that's not normal, but... And that's really what the question is, right? But he's not asking it that way. And this is the kind of scumbag garbage that you're going to see from Adam Lally like the whole way through.
When I think of the word seize, I'm thinking in the legal context where I think there's probable cause to believe, more likely than not, there's evidence of the crime I'm investigating held within the data of that phone. Sometimes if we believe there's information on the phone, we may ask for consent for that one specific thing or for that one specific reason. But outside of that, unless I have that belief there's data on a phone, I won't ask for consent or seize a phone and pursue a search warrant.
Proctor was fired in March by the state police board for the mishandling of evidence and inappropriate behavior during the Karen Reed investigation.
Was the Karen Reed case a one-off? And I would say it doesn't appear to be, because here we are again with late discovery.
Judge Peter Krupp ordered Scapicio and the Commonwealth to hash out discrepancies in the discovery.
Well, late this afternoon, Judge Beverly Cannoni gave limited approval for use of the third-party culprit defense.
Oh, this was another example. So as I was going through this is so disgusting. So as I was going through clips and right, because I'm trying to come up with examples of like where are these examples of Lally kind of obviously aware of like trying to hide lies. That's the best way to say it. Collusion. Where are there examples of collusion by Adam Lally? So that was like my thinking as I'm looking for this clip. And what I remember, I stumble upon Colin Albert, and I remember, okay, now if we're all thinking back to the first trial, who is the one witness that without a doubt 100% committed or commit perjury while he was on the stand, right? Like there's one witness that was undeniably perjuring himself during the first Karen Reed case, right? One person without a doubt, right? Like it was the most clear-cut case of perjury the world has ever seen. And what happens?
It's a change from the first trial, one of many in this high-profile case. Judge Beverly Kearney says with proper evidence, the defense can identify Brian Albert and Brian Higgins as third-party culprits, but not Colin Albert, as was the case in the first trial.
As I was walking out, I saw my Uncle Brian and my Aunt Nicole.
And you were going out, and what were they doing?
They were coming in.
And in addition to your Uncle Brian and your Aunt Nicole, was there anybody else that you recall that was with them when they came into the house?
No, not that I remember.
And what, if any, exchange did you have with your uncle and your aunt as you were going out and they were coming?
I just said, I'm going home. My mom wants me home. I love you guys. Bye.
What I remember, I went in the front door. So I would have gotten out and walked on the brick path over to the front door area, walked up the steps, and then walked through the door that enters into like a foyer area. So when I first walked in, I actually had seen my cousin Colin. He was standing in the foyer area. And I remember I said to him, like, oh, hi, what are you doing?
All right. So the reason I included these clips, if you haven't seen one of the recent videos that I put out about this, it's just a very clear-cut kind of case of catching Adam Lally, helping this group, helping Colin try to amend his testimony so that it gets closer to the story of his cousin Caitlin, right? He's trying to get Colin to change his testimony so that it aligns with what Caitlin says. So Colin says, I mean, it's the greatest. It's next to I've never been in a fight. It's like the greatest moment for Colin, because he's like, oh, I was leaving my cousin's house and I went out the side door because, of course, like Colin Albert never probably in his entire life went through that formal front door in his cousin in Brian Albert's house, right? Because we know from Nicole that nobody liked to use that formal front entrance. That's what she said she wanted them all to use, but nobody did. They all went through the family room, which she never liked because it made a mess in the family room, which we could all imagine. Certainly that makes sense from a mom's perspective, right? With however many kids that she has and however many nieces and nephews and freaking siblings and everybody else. So you got all these people, right? And you can imagine Colin's never been through that front foyer. He's always going to go in and out the side because it's closer and he's a lazy Colin Albert. So this kid goes out the side door and he's like, yeah, so as I'm leaving, like I see my aunt and uncle and I'm like, yep, gotta get home, guys. Mom wants me home. It's amazing. It's just absurd on steroids. But Caitlin screws up. So Caitlin is the worst of all of them. Her testimony is soup to nuts, like provably dishonest, just soup to nuts. From the very first thing she says, which is, yep, me and Tristan went straight to the waterfall. Okay, that's not true. Tristan, she's with her aunt at the Albert's house. Tristan meets them there. Why is she lying about that? We don't know. But one of the other lies that she very clearly also tells is that she went through the front foyer, and as she's walking in, she sees her cousin Colin walking out, and she's like, oh my God, hey, what are you doing here? And it's like, isn't it supposed to be your brother's birthday? Like, oops, whoops, I forgot. So this whole thing is just obviously absurd. But what does Adam Lally do? So remember, Colin comes after Caitlin. So Adam Lally doesn't bring it up. He doesn't push when Colin first tells us that he's walking out and he sees his aunt and uncle. He doesn't say anything about Caitlin. But the very last question, it's his very last question on direct, right? He does a redirect. But the very last question he asks is, guess what?
Albert, just one last question. When it came to your arrival at 34 Fairview Road on the evening of, or the early morning of January 29th, when you were leaving, beyond your Uncle Brian and your Aunt Nicole, did you see anybody else anybody else older than yourself or anybody else related to that group come into the house that evening?
No.
You've never been.
So, and the funny part about that is the way he words it, right? So he's like, an older person, like related to you. He's trying, like, it's so not subtle. But even with it stated that way, he does everything besides say, like, your older female cousin, Caitlin, he still doesn't get it. Like, Colin is just like, nope, didn't see anybody, so it falls flat. But again, Adam Lally's perfectly aware that these statements do not match up. He knows that none of these guys are saying the same things, and that anything that they do say that is the same is exactly the same. Like the same that is, it's so the same that it can't be anything besides totally BS. But here, of course, is the perjury that was never, ever before in the history of time been so blatant in any trial ever.
In a fight.
No.
Indicating that you have no violent tendencies and no violent proclivities, correct?
Unbelievable.
Nope.
You stand by that testimony?
Correct.
Yo, you're Benton's boys. I will beat all your ass.
How the hell can you miss 37 pieces of red taillight, a black sneaker size 12, and a ball cap? That was all found.
All right. So there you go with the point on that one. Just wrapping up the perfect Colin Albert perjuring himself. And what do we have? We have Judge Beverly Canoni telling the defense, and probably, by the way, this ended up being a wonderful thing for the defense, because in the end, it eliminated, they didn't have to worry about Colin. They didn't have to overload the jury with more BS. They were able to kind of streamline where the investigators should have been looking. They had the extra footage of Brian Higgins at the waterfall, so they had plenty to work with without Colin. But it's not the point, right? The point is that clearly the judge, why would Colin Albert have not been included? I'm sorry. I know the reason that she gave was that there was no proof that Colin wasn't at the house. Well, actually, that isn't true. There was lots of proof that Colin was at the house. Everybody agrees that Colin was at the house. The question was, when did Colin leave the house? And because there's so much BS at that exact moment, how could you believe that any of what they're saying is true? How could you believe that he wasn't at the house? He was at the house. He was at the house. There's no doubt about that. Colin was at the house when John walks up to the side door. Okay? 100%. That's, again, these are not in, this is a fact. These are not in question. You think that Judge Beverly Canoni doesn't know this fact? Of course she does. So anything that she can do to try to screw the defense, anything that she can do to try to help the DA's office, including eliminating Colin Albert, she's going to do. And that's what you saw. And this is despite the fact that this kid perjured himself in a way that no one in the world has ever seen. The next day, there was like 15 videos on the internet. Somebody doesn't like Colin Albert because within minutes of his testimony about how he's never been in a fight, all of a sudden videos of him fighting appear on the internet, right? So someone doesn't like Colin very much. Maybe it was the Advantage Boys. Who knows? But there's video evidence. Like it's okay. So now this next thing, this actually was news to me. And I think it was one of you guys in the chat who first told me this, because like more recently, I didn't know that. Well, let's hear what McDonough tells us. You were the guys who are the ones that shared this with me recently, but then I happened to hear McDonough tell Gavin Fish this, so I thought I'd have him tell us instead of me.
So that there was only 3 pieces found in the initial search. 2 years later, the defense finds out there was 5 undocumented searches. In other words, state police went out and never wrote a report about collecting evidence. But they didn't. Yeah, they didn't find it until discovery. Discovery was so late in this case. They find it because they saw one evidence bag marked February 18th. What the hell?
So did they just bury them in discovery or something? I mean, that's...
Well, they withheld that until this past summer.
Now, isn't that like, wouldn't that be a Brady violation? Wouldn't that be enough to...
Talking about Brady violation, talk about exculpatory evidence. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So what he said there, in case you missed it, was that, remember those several searches for taillight where like the chief is just driving by 34 Fairview and he told all of his guys, hey guys, make sure you drive by 34 Fairview because the snow is melting and taillight might just reveal itself. Okay. So apparently none of those searches were ever documented ever, anywhere. And the only reason that the defense, and apparently what McDonough was just saying, was that it was the feds that first discovered this, right? That the feds discovered one bag originally. You remember those, the bags, the evidence bags that we saw throughout both trials where they're like the brown bags, they have the lines on them. And it says like, who collected this evidence, what's in the bag, and it gives you a date. It's all it has on it. Like it was like Proctor, February 13th, whatever. And then taillight pieces. Wasn't a lot of information, but it was all placed, right? So in those bags, and apparently none of that was documented ever, anywhere. So somehow, and again, I believe it was the feds that exposed that one just happened to see one of those bags with Proctor's name on it, and that evidence was collected sometime like mid-February. That is how they discovered that those searches happened, right? So think about that. Think about the fact that like these guys, the defense may never have known that. The defense may never have learned, if it wasn't for the feds. I mean, could that be true? They never would have known that those extra searches for those 40 pieces of taillight, that those searches happened. So what do you think the play was going to be then? Was the DA going to say that they found all of those pieces during the CERT investigation? Like, what was the plan going to be then? Right? And that makes me think, and for those of you that haven't seen it, I don't think I have it available to pull up right now, but I did do a video on this. If you haven't seen it, maybe I'll try to put it up somewhere, a link to it, where there is a video that a report that Sergeant Good originally creates from the morning of January 29th. This is Sergeant Good from the Canton Police Department. So he writes a report about what happens when he shows up on the scene on January 29th. And originally, the photo on the front is just, remember, like the snowblower incident, right? It's just essentially those glass pieces that they uncover with the snowblower from, what's his name? Not Fanning, Gallagher, from Gallagher's snowblowing incident. So, but then fast forward, and all of a sudden, there's a new face sheet on this report. And that report now has taillight pieces shown, right? Now, we all know that none of the taillight was plotted correctly. There was no proper crime scene photography conducted or videos conducted. In fact, I think the only real video we even had was that stupid snowblower, because of the fact that Gallagher was worried about getting in trouble for using it to begin with. So it was really just to cover his butt, right? So, and that's right. So, and this is a great question. So, hold on. Wait. there's a question here. Sometimes you guys, this chat moves so fast that I can't get to you. And somebody's asking about the CERT team. Here it is. Okay. So Queen Olive Ruthane, I love that, is asking or says, the CERT guys are corrupt. I think they got lied to and didn't question anything. So it's a really good question. And I will tell you something. I have labored over this question. I have labored over whether the CERT team, how much they know, how much they knew, and to what degree O'Hara and Tully are boys. How close are these two guys? Because I think O'Hara is inherently a pretty honest person, or thinks of himself that way. But, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news on this, because I don't like this. Like, I would rather just think that cops are honest human beings. And I didn't even know that about myself until now, until I started investigating all of these cops very closely, because it like breaks my heart when I see how much they're lying. But I will tell you that Kevin O'Hara goes to great lengths, and I haven't sat down and actually done a thorough and complete investigation to tell if he's telling the truth. So I haven't done that. So I don't want to give the impression that I have done a full investigation on Kevin O'Hara and whether he's telling the truth. But I will tell you that he does go to great lengths to try to tell us that the CERT team investigation starts probably 20 minutes before it really did. You know how he gives us like those exact names and dates that's so impressive, like from memory. He's like, oh, this sergeant showed up at, 5:12, and this person showed up at 5:20, and we had our cruisers turned around with the lights on, and we were starting at this time. We were all lined up at this time. The problem with O'Hara's testimony, however, is when you actually line up what he's saying with what Brian Tully's saying, and then the questions that, thank God, Alan Jackson asks on cross-examination of O'Hara and of Tully, you find out that it's impossible that what O'Hara is saying could be true, because they couldn't have actually started to do the play-by-play actual searching until Tully told them where the search parameters were going to be. So is that O'Hara just kind of like recounting from his notes? Is that him trying to throw his buddy, throw his boy a bone by adding 10 minutes or subtracting 10 minutes? Maybe. But I will tell you that they both can't be telling us the truth. Somebody's not telling us the truth. And in this case, because Brian Tully, if he could put himself at that scene before 5:30, if Brian Tully could get himself in front of 34 Fairview before 5:30 p.m. and not get busted doing it, he would have. Because Brian Tully wants to be at that scene before 5:30. Why? Because that's what time the SUV pulls into the Sallyport, 5:33. Yeah. So, right. So that's really important. Just keeping that in mind. Keep in mind as we kind of go through this that, I want the CERT team. I want the CERT team to be honest and telling us the truth, and I want O'Hara to be telling us the truth, but it's a little shady. It's definitely a little shady, and absolutely and exactly Queen Olive Ruthane, exactly. So the other point about the search area and then not including the front yard, and then so that's another thing. I don't know. Maybe you guys all did realize this. I don't know that I realized that the front yard was never really searched until somewhat recently. I want to say like 3 months ago, approximately 3 months ago, like before the second trial. It took me a long time to realize that, like, holy crap, they never searched the front yard at all, like at all, which is wild also. And they give you reasons, O'Hara gives you reasons for that. So anyway, the point is, it's hard to believe that O'Hara is telling us the whole truth, nothing but the truth, simply because the timing doesn't all add up. And, if Brian Tully could get himself to that scene before 5:30, he 100% would have. 100%.
I mean, we could go on and on. At what point do you throw your hands up and say, this guy is either shockingly incompetent, he's clearly indifferent, and, is he compromised?
So this is the thing. And I don't, this question about, is he indifferent? I totally get why Bettero's saying that Lally's indifferent, but it reminds me of, like, when you've been in a culture like this for a really long time, and it's just like the way things are. Eventually you grow to kind of accept that this is the way we do it. I mean, the guy has been there for 20 years. Right? Is it indifference or is it collusion? Like, at a certain point, you can't just say, well, I'm here, I might as well just stay on with these corrupt people that, right? Like, that are just lying, cheating. Who cares if it's entitled? Who cares if it's self-righteous? It's still like lying and cheating and being criminally dishonest, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's that he doesn't care or if he's just been, like, so indoctrinated into the system. It's like identifying with the aggressor to a degree. It's just like, yeah, right. It's acceptance. Oh, and that's a great point. Brady Starr, great point. It's the only place he's ever known. So it really is. This is the place that he basically admits, and we get this from him. I only just learned this, yesterday in listening to him testify in the Miles King case. He actually tells us that this is like his first real job. Working in the DA's office was like his first job. So it is the only culture he's ever known. And if you think about, like, the Boston, the whole history of this community includes kind of corruption, right? This kind of, like, it has like a little bit of the good old boys, but it also is very self-righteous. You could see how a guy like Adam Lally just falls into it and is like, yep, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And that's right. And by the time these guys even realize that they are in it, they're like deep in it. They're so deep in it. And now what? Then what? Where are you going to go? And in that way, I think, yes, is Adam Lally like an overachiever? No, he clearly does not want the attention on him, for sure. Okay, so let's get through a little bit of this, and then if you guys have questions, we'll get to those. We'll get to those momentarily.
Or not.
Yeah,
whenever
kind of
you're
like
ready,
a
Mr.
Stockholm
Lally.
syndrome. Then
Good morning, sir.
exactly.
Morning. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Nicholas Barrows, Barros.
And how are you employed, sir?
With the town of Dighton.
And what, if any, role or what do you do for the town of Dighton?
I'm a police sergeant for the police department.
And how long in total have you been a member of the Dighton Police?
All right, now I included this because I wanted to simply make the point or point out the way that Lally maneuvers through this testimony. Because keep in mind, he knows. So when Lally's questioning Barrows, remember, he knows that he has to get him to say that the taillight is busted without emphasizing that it's not all the way busted. So this is like Snake Lally trying to figure out how am I going to slither my way through this to get this guy to, essentially say what I want him to say, but not so much that it undermines me completely. It's just a disgrace. It's a total disgrace.
In total, started in 2011, 14 years this December. I believe it was around 2:30 in the afternoon. I received a phone call from the Norfolk District Attorney's Office with the troopers assigned there, and they had stated that they were going to come to Dighton to retrieve a vehicle that was involved in a homicide.
And did they give you a specific address as far as where they were going?
I believe the address was 345 Country Hill Drive in Dighton, North Dighton.
Now, as far as you received that call at about 2:30, do you know specifically who you spoke to around 2:30 in the afternoon?
Trooper Michael Proctor. On the first call, the troopers just had asked me if I could meet them at that residence as a courtesy since they were coming into my jurisdiction.
And what, if anything, did they indicate to you as far as where they were or when they felt they would be arriving in that area?
Trooper Proctor advised me that they were heading, I believe, from Canton, and once they were about 10 minutes away, they would recontact me so that I could meet them at the residence. Trooper Proctor had asked me to contact our tow company to have them meet us at the residence as well. And I said once I hung up with him, I would contact the tow company and then respond to that address on Country Hill Drive.
And another thing that you'll notice that Lally does really well, if you go back and you really pay close attention to some of this, like I said, it's almost like he tries to get these guys, whoever's testifying, to testify to a lot of just mundane, irrelevant stuff, almost like it buries the lead. It almost like by just giving us so much information, it drowns out any of the important information. It's because I've been asking, is there a purpose to some of these questions? Is there a reason to ask every single person who's testifying about the snow, right? Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. But a lot of the time, I really think he's just burying information. And that's a lot of why he asks such mundane information. Because again, it just kind of gets you to kind of for a second, like you're watching a baseball game and it's like the dog days of summer and you're like in the seventh inning and your eyes kind of glaze over and you kind of lose track of time. That's what he kind of hopes you do with some of these guys.
Did he say anything about what his intentions were once he arrived at the location?
Yes, his intention was to retrieve a vehicle that he said was involved in a homicide.
Did he specifically say to you at 3 o'clock-ish in the afternoon he intended to seize the vehicle?
I believe the first phone call, that was his intention.
Meaning all the way back to 2:30?
2:30 is when he first called me and said that they were coming to Dighton to retrieve a vehicle that occurred in a homicide in Canton.
And you understood that to mean what? Retrieve a vehicle?
Seize.
Thank you.
Now, Sergeant Buchanan.
Now, you'll notice that was not Adam Lally asking that question, right? That was, of course, Alan Jackson. So, right? Okay, so Lally doesn't ever ask that question because, once again, of course not. Lally doesn't want our attention to be on the fact that they're going to seize a vehicle they don't have any right to take.
Are you aware of a warrant that was executed on that vehicle on February 1st of 2022?
I am aware.
And you yourself were not present for that, is that correct?
I was not present for the execution, no, sir.
Trooper Proctor was, as far as you're aware, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, the next time that you were within the Canton Police Department Sally Port Garage with the vehicle was on February 2nd, is that correct?
That's correct.
So when you say it was a snowstorm and we couldn't get into the driveway, can you expound upon that a little as far as explain to the jury why it was that you couldn't get into the driveway?
It was about a foot of snow in the driveway.
Now, you'll notice that, and we're almost done with this, you'll notice that what Adam Lally does with Barrows is he tries to stress the snow because the implication that he's making is that, well, the reason why Barrows didn't see the fully smashed out taillight was because snow was caked on in such a way as to hide the front face of the taillight, and he only saw the little piece on the end, right? So that's the reason why, you'll notice in between the important question, which was, right, was the taillight, broken, basically, are these questions about snow. And what do we later learn from Barrows? We later learn from Barrows that the intention from DA Lally when they went in to prep for trial was to show him a photo, which of course they don't do because they don't want him to undermine them by saying, yeah, that picture is not what the taillight looked like.
And as far as that snow that you observed when you arrived there, was that snow, how did that snow appear as far as, did it appear as if it had been shoveled or snow blown or untouched, or how did it?
It was untouched.
Now, as you're going through the snow, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's yourself, Trooper Proctor, and the sergeant from the state police, and who, if anyone else, is going along with you?
I had an officer that was field training with me that day, and he was with me as well. And we went up to the residence.
And just in reference to this driveway, just if you could, not exact footage or anything, but how close is this Lexus SUV parked in relation to the roadway? How long is that driveway?
It's got to be about 150 feet off the roadway, if not more.
And if you recall, from where you're standing at the point of the garage, was what part of the vehicle was facing you? Was it the front of the vehicle, the back of the vehicle, the side of the vehicle? If you know?
I was looking at the left side of the vehicle.
And at some point, did you make any observations of the right rear part of that Lexus SUV?
I did.
And what, if anything, did you observe about that area of the vehicle?
I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight. To my best ability and recollection, that taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked, and a piece was missing, but not completely damaged.
And then beyond the taillight area of that vehicle, what, if anything else, did you observe as far as damage to the rear passenger side area?
Like a dent on the rear quarter.
And as far as the dent on the rear quarter panel that you saw, was that above the taillight, below the taillight, or something?
It's probably right in conjunction with the taillight in that same area.
Mm-hmm.
They had said, there's a picture that, the taillight is completely damaged. And I had told them that's not what I saw. So fast forward to when I actually get onto the stand and, they asking me questions. And when I said, that a piece was missing and it was not completely damaged, they never went on to ask me more because they knew what I was going to say. And, and it didn't go for them.
Sergeant Barrows, is this the condition of the right rear taillight when you showed up at the Reed household at around 3:15 in the afternoon on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not.
And from the time that you made these observations of the vehicle, at any point did you go sort of physically up to the vehicle?
I walked up to the vehicle, correct.
And about how far away from the vehicle did you get?
Unbelievable.
5 to 10 feet away.
And as far as the sort of outside or exterior of the vehicle, you mentioned obviously there's about a foot of snow on the ground. What, if anything, precipitation-wise or weather-wise, was around or on the outside of the vehicle?
Just snow.
And in particular, in this area of the right rear passenger side and that taillight, was there any snow or ice or anything around that area that you observed?
On the vehicle itself?
Yes.
Yes, on the vehicle there was snow on the vehicle.
And not to put words in your mouth, but sort of caked on there, is that correct?
See, there it is. Not to put words in your mouth, but caked on there, right? Right. So there it is. There's, Lally trying to make sure and provide some kind of logical reason for why it is that Barrows didn't see exactly what it is that Michael Proctor tells us that he sees. But what's really interesting about the way that Barrows describes the taillight is it's almost identical to the way that Carrie Roberts first described the taillight. So Carrie also, remember, she talks about how that little piece, she was worried about the piece on the side because it was going to maybe hit somebody's shirt or, rip something or whatever. Someone would catch something on it. So it's the two of them describe that part of the taillight sticking out pretty much exactly the same way. A piece was missing, which is really interesting. Also be very interesting. I didn't even realize that, maybe I did, but I didn't think enough about it. I know that Barrows had somebody with him. Would also be very interesting to hear what the person with Barrows that day, if he remembered the taillight and what his memory of it is. Not that I don't believe Barrows, it's just another person that, would be interesting to hear from. But so these all, and there's more, and maybe we can go through at a different time or later, but you get it, right? I mean, there's an endless amount of just example after example after example of Lally doing some kind of sneakiness, some kind of scumbaggery in order to manipulate information. And as so many of you have pointed out, yeah, I mean, there's discovery violations. There's certainly just, I don't even know, any number of ethical violations that you would just think, right? Is this legal? Is this just terrible practice? Like, and again, as someone who doesn't know the law hard and fast, I don't know, right? But I can only say that, yeah, not turning over discovery, not letting the defense know that, oh yeah, by the way, one of the cops from a different town who knows nothing about the McAlberts doesn't think that the taillight was broken, might be an important person to mention to the defense. Or how about all those searches that took place after the most important day, the day in question? How about the 10 searches that take place for the 40 pieces of taillight that just appear after that first search? And when were these cops, when were they going to say that those 40 pieces of taillight appeared if there was never any mention of those 4 extra searches that happened in February, right? So it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And absolutely, let me see if I can find. Yes, Dreamland Allergic to BS says, Samantha, like the rest of us, has a hard time coming up with the words to describe all this bullshit. That's right. And you know why? Because there's layers of bullshit here. There's the layers that are coming from the McAlberts. And I tend in my mind to sort of separate these guys into 3 separate clusters. You've got the people in the house who have murdered someone and clearly are, if you want to talk about cover-ups or, intentional deceit because they are trying to frame an innocent person, right? So you've got those guys. Clearly, Brian Albert as the leader, Jennifer McCabe, everybody at 34 Fairview, that group falls into camp 1. But then you've got these cops, right? And the cops are a little different because they're just this combination of like incompetence and like, yeah, maybe good old boys club of some version, right? Or like whatever you want to call it, this self-righteous group of cops who believe that they are on a mission to get justice for a fallen brother in blue, but absolutely unable to see that they are like as far off the path as you could get, right? It's crazy. So then you have the DA, and then you have the judge in this case, Canoni, and then you have judges like Cosgrove, guys like Tully who are going after Turtle Boy. And here's the thing, and I will never stop saying this, right, until all of these people are at least removed from their posts so they can do no more damage. The thing that just, it's so insane, right? It's like they just double down over and over again. Had they ended this with the Karen Reed case, had they not then gone after Turtle Boy, we wouldn't get all of the extra information that we're going to get. we're going to get a whole nother dump as soon as this Turtle Boy situation is resolved. We're going to get a whole nother dump of information about how all of these people have been colluding, have been behaving behind the scenes in unscrupulous ways. God knows if it's even legal, right? Like, we're going to get a whole nother dump of information. And it's the same thing that's going to happen if they try to go after Karen Reed in a civil case. Do they not get what happens when you conduct these types of behavior, when you go after somebody the way that these guys in their self-righteous mode think that they have the right to do? Yeah, go ahead. But you know what? We're going to get more information to look at and go, geez, look at all this corruption. Look at all this collusion. What is Kate Peter? Do you even know who that is? Is it like when you start to go through? So I'm going to pull up the Better letter just so you can see a couple of these things, right? I'm sure some of you have read through all of this. It's long and we don't need to go through all of it, but it's insane. Like, they're talking about the district attorney's office colluding with Catherine Peter. You guys, do you know who we're talking about? It's like, what is going on? This is how desperate these people are to try to put Turtle Boy in jail, that they're going to, right? Like, they're protecting Colin Albert, but you know what? We're going to take information from Kate Peter, the same woman who tries to pass like fake legal documents off to YouTube to try to get copyrights material from Turtle Boy. It's just like, this woman is just trash. Like, and I don't like to say that about people, but just like not the kind of person that you would expect the district attorney to be colluding with in any kind of meaningful, useful way to get evidence to put somebody in jail in a legitimate sense, right? It's just, but this is what they're doing. This is what Michael Morrissey's DA is doing. And not only that, they're paying her. Like, do we believe this? You know what? It's so unbelievable that it's like, you know what? They probably are paying her. Why not? This is who these people are. This is what they do. Oh my God. It's just so disgusting. This group. So I'm looking for this one statement. Let me see if I can find it, because I don't need to go through all of the, oh, here it is. Okay. Let me see if I can, bring this up. All right. Our recognition of the obvious discovery issues associated with the Commonwealth's substantial reliance on Ms. Peter resulted in 4 defense demands for discoverable and exculpatory materials related to the, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to see this. Hold on. I may not be able to see it. Okay, I'm going to skip over the next 2 sentences. We now know that most of the discoverable and specifically demanded information has been in the actual possession of both special prosecutors since at least December 16th of 2024, when Mr. Mello emailed evidence of Ms. Peters' communications with himself and Lieutenant Brian Tully to you. Inexplicably, this critical evidence remained undisclosed for almost 7 months, even as demand after demand for it was made, and the court ordered its disclosure months ago. If this wasn't bad enough, on July 7th, the court and defense were led to believe that the July 7th, 2025 production contained more than 5,000 pages of discovery and included, quote, all of the Peter materials we have sought for almost 1 year. As it turns out, what we were told on July 7th was inaccurate. What was represented to the court and defense as 4,727 pages of relevant material from Lieutenant Tully's cell phone, in fact, contained more than 4,000 blank pages. Another 400 pages of purportedly relevant materials were entirely redacted without explanation. Accordingly, we demand an immediate production of the entirety of the relevant materials from Mr. Lieutenant Tully's cell phone prior to August 13th, 2025. That is all I wanted to read. This is a real legal document, okay? That is a real letter written by Mark Betterow, one of the few people in the world that I trust. Okay? So explain to me how do you let that go? How does this just not, how do you just let that roll off your back? If I'm the judge in this case, if I read that, I would be furious. What are you doing? How are they getting away with this? How is this okay? How is Turtle Boy not just able to basically say, all right, well, you're not giving me the discovery that I am due in this case. I cannot prepare a defense. Therefore, I guess this should just all be over. It's insane. How are they getting away with this? So, obviously, this has been going on for a long time. This is not new. But after we see Cosgrove stand up in front of the judge and make this big show of, oh, well, I've got 6,000 pages of discovery, Your Honor, to turn over to you. And then it turns out that the vast majority are blank. Are you kidding? Yes. In that way, let me just be very clear. Did Cosgrove know about it? Oh, yes, of course. And the look on his face tells you that he knew that was garbage, 100%. But I just don't know if he gets the gravity and the scope. I feel like this is just bigger than he has the capacity to understand. And yes, I agree. Rights On says very deep rooted corruption. And this is how generational corruption gets in. And you're right? Because in a way, I guess that maybe that is the best framework here is it's right. It just gets passed along as normal behavior, year after year after year. And I bet you it's a very interesting place to be right now, because now that all of those homicide investigators were disbanded, I mean, who the hell is even there? Who are the homicide investigators for the DA's office right now? And that's a completely new group of guys working together, you would think, for the first time, right? Because they didn't have that many guys. They were all working under Tully. Tully's no longer in charge of that group. So who the hell is even in charge over there now? Would be interesting information. Is it Fanning? Which shouldn't make any of us sleep well at night if that's true. So, that's what do you do, right? I mean, you just have to keep fighting and just keep exposing all of this garbage, because it's disgusting. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, Sunshine, right? This guy did retire. Cosgrove is retired. What the hell? What is he doing back? Oh my God. So hopefully, Film Freak, you are still here. Welcome. I am super excited that you gifted a membership. So welcome to whoever got the membership. I don't think I get to know that, which is super annoying. Big Dog 5758 is a new member. Welcome aboard. What do you do? What do you do? I mean, all that we can do is just keep screaming and yelling and shouting to the best of our ability. And I won't shut up until until Michael Morrissey is gone. That is the day when I can sleep at night and move on and say, all right, now at the very least, we will get somebody in here who will do a proper investigation, or at the very least, will do everything that they can to try to figure out what the hell really happened to Mr. Police Officer John O'Keefe, right? This guy who I love when the family and the McAlberts try to say that all of us have forgotten about the man at the center of this whole saga. But unfortunately for them, nothing could be farther from the truth. If I'd forgotten about John O'Keefe, I certainly wouldn't be still here talking about all this garbage, right? Because that's the only thing that from the very beginning I gave a crap about, right? that guy and making sure to see justice for him. That is what matters to me. Mary Leona Bennett, thank you for your super sticker. Steph sells stuff by the seashore. Welcome back. And thank you so much for being here. I love when I have to read your name because I always gives me like, helps me to calm down for a minute. So I don't, right. And Judy, of course, Judy Basteri sends $49.99. I so grateful for you. Thank you for being here with me tonight. You guys are awesome. And Ms. Holmes 66. Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. Yeah, so if any of you guys have questions, throw them out. Happy to answer anything that I can from any of the work that I've been doing. And like I said, I'm just going to be out there continuing to freaking like go through it all. I mean, you wouldn't believe how much information there is. And I don't know if any of you or if all of you have seen that video where I died when I realized that all of these people were saying something different about the same thing in their testimonies. I couldn't believe it, you guys. I couldn't believe it. I was like, again, it's one of those examples where you just kind of glaze over some of the details. Like, and this is what Lally does so well. He just glazes over all this information and you kind of like, all right, you listen for 4 hours to somebody's testimony, 4, 5, 6, 7. God, some of these people were on the stand for days, like 3 days. That's what we're talking about. Hours and hours of watching Yuri Buchanan's face, right? It's a lot of work to listen to every detail. But I will tell you that whenever I do it, whenever I sit and I listen very carefully, that's where you get all the good stuff. It really, really is. It's where you get all the nuggets because you see it and you see their facial expressions and you're almost like in it with them. And that's the important piece, right? It's like, oh my God, wow. Okay. Yeah. Somebody asked a question. I don't know what it was. But and I also will say too, like I'm obviously a huge nerd. And so it's fun for me because as I'm going through all this analysis, I'm learning too, like, about all kinds of stuff, but it helps, it really does. It really helps. It just makes me, grow as a human being to be sitting with all of this information and trying to figure it all out. So, okay. Bite My Bit says, you have really picked up a lot. I'm sure there's crossover from your profession too. Yeah, of course. Oh, yes. So, of course, I love him. Sergio, he's like the greatest because I think he's the master at lie detection. And so interestingly, so I picked up a lot from him. And then I went and started taking classes on the kind of work that he does. So as soon as I saw his stuff, I was like, I have to figure out what he's doing and where he's getting this from. And then started taking classes, online classes. And I think it's just probably a combination, right? So like picking it up from him and then going deeper down that rabbit hole just to understand. So here's the part that I knew already and study day in and day out. And this is really nitty gritty. So there's this, the human experience is built on the law of efficiency. And if you've heard Sergio, then he talks about this, although in a different way than I have and will. The reason why he talks about the law of efficiency is because he's telling you that like when human beings speak, they do so with this law of energy efficiency in mind. So when I say efficiency, I mean energy efficiency. Every directive of every cell in your body is to conserve energy all day long. And one of the testimonies that was the most interesting in this way is Michael Proctor. Michael Proctor, like he will like trail off in the middle of his sentences because it's like if you really pay close attention, it's like he's bothered, like it's exhausting for him to have to speak. It's like that the whole way through. But that is evidence or an example of just how exhausting it is to have to, answer all of these questions and to think about how you're going to answer them and what are your answers going to be. It's part of the reason why Jennifer McCabe falls apart towards the end of her cross-examination completely, although many times really at the beginning and the end of her cross-examination. So but that law of efficiency, when you understand it, you understand how that operates, it helps so much when you're trying to understand how to analyze speech to determine if people are telling you the truth or not. Because if you don't trust that law, you'll never trust your instincts about whether what that person is saying is true or false. Does that make sense? So you really have to believe that wholeheartedly in order to be able to say with any kind of certainty that what that person is saying is true or false. And then, of course, you have to, all of your just knowledge in general, which helps a lot too. But I love it. So I'm such a nerd. And when I hear him saying things that like echo those same principles of how the brain works, because that's what I study, right? So my area of psychological focus is psychophysiology, which is a lot of what Sergio talks about too. So there's like crossover in our nerdiness in that way. I hope that answered that question. But I'm, Karen, I'm happy to have you here. So, thank you for being here. And okay, let me run this before we go. I'm going to, here is my real email. So there was like the false email going around. So I just want to make sure my real email is here. This is the real one. Let me delete this other one. So yes, I am absolutely trying to add mods. So if you want to be a mod, absolutely email me. Let me know. Put it in the subject line. It may take me like a day or two to get back to you. I'm not ignoring you. It is just insane right now because I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for this next semester. And I'm trying to get it all the chips falling where they may. I had to go pick up my daughter early from camp because she wanted to come home. So she is home. So we're settling in now and going on vacation next week. Also coming up, although I may have to change it, we're going to be doing a call-in show, a live call-in show. So pay attention for information about that. You'll see it, like there'll be information everywhere. I wanted to do it next Sunday night. Unfortunately, that is my family vacation weekend, which I conveniently just forgot. So it is very unlikely that that's going to work. We just won't have in the hotel that we're at. We don't have enough internet to ensure that we could kick that off successfully. So we're probably going to have to push it back another week, but I will make sure that everybody has that information. And I will, bring it back up and let everybody know next Wednesday what the final date will be. And then I will post about it a ton so everybody will know. And I think with that, so you'll also know I'm in the middle of finishing up a video with a lot of other content that we didn't get to tonight, simply because we could be here all day with all of this. If you haven't seen the Brian Walsh stuff, I know some of you have. If you haven't seen the Brian Walsh testimony of Yuri Buchanan, which is fascinating, first off, because Buchanan is like a different person. So it's like, who is this imposter Buchanan? Whoa, he's like completely not defensive. And it's really interesting to see Yuri Buchanan not defensive. He's just answering questions like he doesn't care. So I think it also, again, speaks to how nervous he probably was with the kind of spotlight that was on him. I think Buchanan was a little, I don't want to say spooked by the amount of attention on them, but spooked by it, like really, really anxious over it. And maybe he should have been. I mean, it's what unraveled all of that, right? They obviously had like a love fest going, those guys, right? Like that, the Buchanan and Proctor and DeChico and, you know, Kukowski and Tully, like they had a little love fest. And thanks to, in their minds, Karen Reed, it all went to shit. Now they're all like on administrative duty, doing God knows what with God knows who. And by the way, I don't think any of them are doing any kind of investigative work, right? Because I don't think Buchanan is doing investigative stuff, right? He's like relegated to some desk job somewhere. Maybe Tully still is. You know what? If I remember correctly, whatever job he allegedly has, it's some kind of a temporary place, which makes me think they haven't figured out what to do with him yet, or at least they haven't publicly announced it. But, you know, maybe the Massachusetts State Police aren't done with this group yet, right? I mean, just when we thought that, you know, Proctor was going to be the only one to really take the hit, all of a sudden we're finding out that, no, this whole group has been disbanded. They're all going different ways. You know, maybe the Massachusetts State Police decide there's still more, you know, fallout to come. There should be, certainly, because they have a lot of work to do. So my point is, go back, find the testimony, watch some of the clips from the Brian Walsh testimony with Buchanan and then Fanning. And the whole reason that I went back and I watched that was to get to know who Fanning was, because we hear about him. He was involved with the Sandra Birchmore stuff. You hear about him only because he's on some of the text threads with Proctor in the Karen Reed stuff. But then he comes up big time with the Brian Walsh stuff, because again, guess what topic? Search warrants, improper search and seizure, lots of confusion about whether they should or shouldn't, did or did not have consent to take some of the cell phones or iPads or whatever that they eventually find a lot of incriminating information on. So once again, another example of improper protocol, doing things however they feel like it. And apparently that's just the way it is. And who cares, right? So check that out if you haven't seen it. And if not, if you just don't worry, because I am working on my next video, which will include clips from all of it, stuff we talked about tonight, and the Brian Walsh stuff, and some of the little bits that we didn't get to because, you know, we'll just be here forever, which is great. I don't mind it, but I kind of have to sleep sometimes. You know, I'm not great at sleep as it is, but this definitely doesn't help in that effort. So with that, you know, as always, if you have anything that you think you want to send me or mention, and if you want to be a mod, email me. Absolutely. And if I don't get back to you right away, don't take it personally. I absolutely will. I guarantee it. Everybody, oh my God, thank you so much for your time, your effort, your attention. You guys are amazing and just the greatest community of people in the whole world. No, but really changed and given me a renewed hope and faith in humanity. And I very much appreciate that. And I will see you guys, I guess, again next Wednesday night. Bye, everybody. Have a great night.